Dad wants to do a memorial for my sister at my wedding, but I'd rather she wasn't mentioned. I know the title sounds bad. I was hoping people might be able to assess this objectively and give suggestions, especially if they've been at weddings with memorials before. Unfortunately, for me, this is a trickier situation than I'd like because of who my sister was. I'm changing small details to make it harder to identify this situation, if anyone I know happens across it. My younger sister passed away last year. She was an adult, but young, and it was sudden. I don't want to go into too much detail, but she made some bad choices that contributed to her short life. She was also not well mentally. She had an extremely tumultuous relationship with my mom and I. Some ups, but mostly very nasty downs, especially during years when we tried to save her from herself. On the other hand, my dad was often idealized by her, and they had a better relationship. My fiancé did not have a good relationship with her either. Her final years and death were traumatic for our whole family. It's especially impacted my dad, since she passed. My dad has made a point of eulogizing her at every family event we've had to remember her and make sure she was present. It's always been difficult for both my mom and I because I have a lot of intense, difficult emotions surrounding her and her passing. I always cry for hours, and I end up feeling downhearted and out of sorts for days after each one of these surprise memorial events. My dad will be the officiant at our wedding. It's very soon. I only recently learned that he plans to memorialize her during the ceremony and in his toast. I really don't want him to do this. But he's extremely resistant because he doesn't want to pretend like she was never here. I will admit that it is childish for me to feel bitter about someone who is no longer here. But growing up, I had a lot of events hijacked by her causing some incident, and now it feels like it's happening again even when she's passed. If we had a better relationship, I might have been more okay with taking a moment to remember her. But my dad tends to lionize her and has a selective memory where he's forgotten everything bad. He was shocked when I said I wasn't comfortable with her being mentioned in a speech outside of my own baggage. My fiancé certainly doesn't want her mentioned. This is not just a my side of the family event like the previous memorials. I also fear it will bring down what's supposed to be a happy time and make the guests sad or uncomfortable. I want to try to compromise with him by having my mom. He and I wear yellow jewelry in discreet places to remember her. Yellow was her favorite color, but I'm not sure if he'd be okay with this because it's too secret. Long story short. How can I let my dad feel like we're honoring my sister's memory without upsetting my mom? My fiancé and myself too much to enjoy the day. I'm at a loss, and it's hard for me to approach this objectively. Edit, I need to go to bed so I won't be replying further. But I wanted to thank the people who offered condolences and advice, and also those who were rightfully saying, "Girl, what are you thinking?" when I said maybe I should just let him do it. I've gotten a lot of great ideas for other ways of remembering people, not just my sister, and ways to handle it if my dad tries anyway. I'm having a serious discussion with him tomorrow, and if I get any hint that he's going to ignore my fiancé and I's wishes, then we'll find another officiant. Wish I'd been smart enough to fully settle this issue months ago instead of days from the wedding, but lesson learned about clear communication there. Thanks again. Comments. My mother and I have both tried to talk about how we process grief differently, especially given how difficult our relationships with my sister were. That's part of why I wasn't expecting him to do this at this event, because he did it for my birthday, and I had to talk about how hard that was. Unfortunately, I guess I didn't make the impression that I thought I did. I don't want to ask him to step down as the officiant, because I think that would really hurt him and cause more problems than just letting this happen. I just hope I could find some compromise that allows him to feel like he's not forgetting about his other daughter without making me too depressed to be a good wife to my fiancé or hostess to my guests. It really messes with me when I think about her death too much. Regarding, I don't know why you'd expect this to be different. Tell me about it. I thought it was understood that this was not the time, but I was not clear enough, and I should have been more clear. I'd like to do some kind of counseling. My excuse, I'm aware it's an excuse, is that I'm working a job where finding extra time is difficult. Just in the lead up to the wedding, I've been going to bed at 3 and waking up at 8, just to be sure I do everything I need to for work, plus wedding planning. Admittedly, I fall into the trap where I think I just need to find a good time. But the time has, of course, not magically presented itself. My dad tried grief counseling briefly, but he quit after a few sessions and refuses to try again. He thought it was too impersonal. My mom and I, but especially my mom, have become his therapists instead, which is not awesome for us for the reasons you could imagine. I think convincing himself to do family counseling would be difficult. If nothing else, this is a good reminder that I need to more seriously pursue counseling for myself, even if he doesn't want to try. Unfortunately, it's a matter of days. That's why I haven't just said he shouldn't officiate. Finding someone else this soon would be a bear. And the emotional turmoil of saying he can't officiate would, I think, make things even worse than letting him do the memorial speeches for a variety of reasons. He's also shown that he will just kind of do things to memorialize her even when he's not in an official position. So I think that wouldn't really stop him if he were determined. That's why I'm hoping that I can find a compromise that's less obtrusive, so he doesn't feel guilty without literally calling everyone's attention to my sister's death. I worry about that sort of thing. People thinking they're being proactive and thoughtful by mentioning the death and ways to mourn. But it's just way more upsetting to you than if you could have just let it be processed internally, instead of in front of other people. I can compartmentalize, but I can't when people are talking to me about it. I have a terrible fear that I just have to steel myself for comments and condolences all night, when I'm just trying to have a day where I'm not thinking about death for once. The special flower or colors is a nice idea, as well as including things relevant to my fiancé, so it's not just for my sister. Again, my fiancé did not like her because of being protective of me, so the thought of dedicating the wedding to her is not sitting well. The more I've thought of it since leaving this comment and post, the more I realize it wouldn't be worth it to just let this happen. I'll need to discuss options for another officiant with my fiancé, really hoping it won't come to that, and my dad understands and agrees to not mention the death when I talk to him about it tomorrow morning, especially if I frame it as, if you can't stop yourself, we can't have you officiate, but just letting him do it is not what would be best for everyone. Or really anyone. A moment of silence is a good idea, especially if it's about all those who couldn't be here. Not just my sister. I know my fiancé has relatives who passed long time ago, but the sadness lingers who would have been wanted here. I can ask my man of honor dude best friend, haha, to step in if things go off the rails, even if my dad is not an officiant and just doing a toast. He has a good relationship with my dad, so I trust him to do it sensitively.
That's a really good idea too, thank you.
Regarding what you said about whether he wants us to be in pain, God, I hope not. I don't think so. I think he's trying everything he can to make the pain stop. But nothing can. He does other rituals that are more personal, which I'm happy he does if it helps him. It's just this that can be really hard on us. The eulogies seem to help him with the guilt he feels about not being able to save her from herself, something we all deal with in different ways, about moving on, about everything. It's a really bad situation for a little bit, but only for a little. I think it's also a I would like others to do this for me thing, which I get. Imagining people just celebrating and living life after you pass on it existentially terrifying. But it is something that happens to everyone. I know we're missing those who have passed before too. Grandma on my fiancé's side and great aunt and grandpa on mine. I think my fiancé would be touched by that. If it wouldn't be too hard to even take that moment, I'll make sure it's okay with my fiancé before offering it as an idea to my dad, of course. Update. I received a number of requests for an update to this. So here we are. It's a good update, thankfully. I spoke with my dad the morning after making the post. I tried to emphasize that mentioning my sister's passing in detail at the wedding would be very difficult emotionally for my mother and I, would take away from my fiancé's now husband's day, and would probably make the guests uncomfortable or saddened. He said he was resistant at first because he's been so afraid of my sister's memory fading away, but that ultimately he understood my concerns. He still wanted her present in some way that wouldn't take away from our day. I offered suggestions that people gave for ways to have her memory present. We decided to have a seat reserved for past loved ones at the ceremony, and an empty seat with a name tag for her at the wedding party's table during the reception dinner. My dad was the officiant as originally planned, and he gave a beautiful speech at the ceremony and a heartfelt toast that was focused on the joy of the day instead of the sadness of the past. As far as I'm aware, everyone at the wedding had a wonderful time, and the only tears shed were happy ones. I know that there were multiple commenters who said my dad should be replaced as the officiant no matter what, but I'm glad I didn't do that. After the wedding was over, he gave me a big hug, crying because it meant so much to him that we trusted him to do the ceremony, and how happy it made him to be such a big part of the wedding. It meant a lot to my husband and I too. Moral of the story. Sometimes it takes a few tries to get it right, but honest and heartfelt communication between everyone involved won the day here. Thanks again to everyone who left advice, comfort, well wishes, and grandma hugs. I did not at all anticipate the interest in my post, but I'm grateful for everyone's comments even if I ran out of time to reply to everyone. In the end, it was a perfect wedding, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. Stories number 2. Entitled neighbor insists I pay for damage she caused. I never asked for it. I 26F live in a townhouse. One of my neighbors, M40S, is that neighbor who always expects favors. A few weeks ago, during a heavy storm, a large branch from one of her trees cracked and fell across my driveway. It damaged my car bumper when I came home. Her tree, I called her. She agreed the branch was from her tree. She said she would cover the repair. But the next day she changed her tune. She claimed the wind was unusually strong. Not her fault, and insisted my insurance should handle it. Then asked me to pay her compensation for lost potential value of the tree. She claimed it was ornamental, worth dollars in aesthetic value. At first I was stunned. She expects me to pay her because her tree is damaged? She says I'm responsible for cleanup afterward. I'm flabbergasted by her sense of entitlement. I don't want to fight, but I also don't want to be exploited. I've asked around. Legally, the tree owner is generally responsible for damage caused by their tree to a neighbor. But she's making noise in the homeowners group, saying I'm trying to bully her, cost her reputation, etc. What do I do here? Stand firm and possibly risk escalating hostility, or give ground and accept some cost to avoid drama? Comments. Commenter 1. I would double-check the legal responsibility thing. In a lot of places, damage from a falling tree is nobody's fault unless that tree was already known to be damaged or at risk of falling. When a large branch from my neighbor's tree fell and damaged my roof, I had to make a claim with my own insurance. So she may very well be right about that part. As for you being responsible for damage to her tree, she's out of her gourd. Commenter 2. This has happened to me before. I live in Florida. If my healthy tree falls in the neighbor's yard from a storm, that's on them, not me. Commenter 3. So obviously you have no responsibility for the damage to her tree, and her asking you to pay for that is ridiculous. But whoever is telling you the tree owner is responsible for damage to someone else's property is almost always wrong. Unless there is documented proof that the tree was a danger. A branch falling is considered an act of God. And if a branch damages your property, you're responsible no matter who owns the tree. Commenter 4. If a tree falls on your property from a neighbor's property, then unfortunately, that's your problem to take care of. So just go through insurance for your car. However, she is completely unhinged if she thinks you owe her money for the limb falling. Stories number 3. I 24F am blind, and my boyfriend's friends talk inappropriately about me and joke about raping me. So, my boyfriend 31M and I 24F have been dating for 3 years now. We live in an apartment together, and we're having the wonderful luck, that sarcasm BTW, of having my boyfriend's 2 best friends 32M and 35M as our neighbors. They live right across from us, which is a huge issue because they come over literally every day, and it almost feels like I'm living in my apartment with 3 guys instead of just 1. Sometimes they come over when my boyfriend isn't even home and start engaging me in the most random and weirdest conversations. And sometimes these conversations are really disgusting. Here's an example. A few days ago I was at home and my boyfriend was at work. As always, 32Ms and 35Mers decided to come over without bothering to tell me beforehand that they were coming over. The conversation was really unsettling this time. They started talking about how easy it could be to rape me, because according to them, they could just walk in pretending to be my boyfriend and I wouldn't know it was them. This freaked me out a little bit because this is my exact issue. Whenever the door to my apartment opens, I always assume it's my boyfriend. But sometimes it's them instead. However, as soon as they open their stupid mouth, I know for sure that it's them and not my boyfriend. As if this whole, I could rape you and you wouldn't know it was me, thing wasn't enough. They said that if I got pregnant by one of them, I wouldn't know, because I wouldn't be able to see that my child would look like one of them instead of my boyfriend. I just sat there and thought, what the F goes on in their brains? I'm used to people not knowing how to act in front of me because of my blindness. But my boyfriend's friends' conversations aren't just uncomfortable or awkward. They're terrifying. I don't think they would ever touch me against my will, but conversations like this are incredibly unsettling, and I wish they would stop talking about me like that. I haven't told my boyfriend about this exact situation, but I told him that his friends make me uncomfortable. I'm afraid that my boyfriend won't believe me when I tell him about this conversation, because it's just so absurd. I'm almost 100% sure that if I do tell my boyfriend about his friend's behavior towards me, it will result in a 1 versus 2 situation. His friends will most likely deny anything I say, and then it will be 2 statements them against 1 me. Just for clarification, my boyfriend knows that his best friends come over even when he's not at home, but he doesn't see it as a problem. What should I do? I'd be thankful for any advice. TLDR, I am blind. My boyfriend's best friends talk inappropriately about me and joke about raping me because, according to them, I wouldn't be able to tell them apart from my boyfriend due to me being blind. My boyfriend doesn't know that they're talking about me like this. Edit. There are tons of people asking me how I was able to type this even though I'm blind. I've explained it several times in the comments already, but people keep commenting about it, and I'm getting tired of explaining the same thing over and over again. There is a YouTube video called How I Use Technology as a Blind Person by a woman called Molly Burke. Feel free to watch or listen to this video. Relevant comments, commenter 1, can you record that shit? Also, how do they go into the apartment? I think you can absolutely tell your boyfriend that you're not okay with them coming in when he's not around. Reply, I'll definitely try to record it next time. They have a key for the apartment, and we actually have one for their apartment as well. But it was supposed to be only used in emergency situations. Commenter 2. I haven't told my boyfriend about this exact situation, but I told him that his friends make me uncomfortable. Tell your BF about the conversation in detail, and tell him that his friends are no longer welcome, especially if he's not around. I'm afraid that my boyfriend won't believe me when I tell him about this conversation because it's just so absurd. OP. Most women your BF's age would have never put up with this sort of behavior in the first place. Just popping in whenever? Simply nope. If your BF doesn't believe you, or takes his friend's side, break it up, get out. But he doesn't see it as a problem. They have their own home. Why do they need to come over when it's just you? Why don't you deserve private time? Start looking the door, take their keys away, or replace the lock. Commenter 3, please lock your door. If they have a key, insist on having the lock changed and do not give them a copy. Tell your boyfriend that if they come into your place again, you're moving out. This is bullshit. If your boyfriend supports his friends over you, then you don't want him for a boyfriend. That's not how someone in a committed relationship should act. You should be the most important thing in the world to him. Commenter 4, OP, you need to get out of this situation ASAP. With or without your boyfriend, it is insane that these guys joke about this. Believe me, in absolutely no way, shape, or form is this normal at all. This feels like a ticking time bomb, and I'm genuinely concerned for your safety. Commenter 5, I honestly feel sick to my stomach imagining how incredibly unsafe OP must feel. Being blind is already a vulnerable way to walk through the world, especially as a woman. And to have two people who have unrestricted access to your home explicitly say that they could rape you whenever they wanted? Good lord, I want to cry for her. Update. This is actually a repost of my update. I posted this only a few days after my original post, but I must have somehow deleted it because it doesn't show up on my profile anymore. I'm very sorry about that. Using technology as a blind person doesn't always go smoothly, but at least I was able to find the saved copy of my update on my laptop. Before anyone asks again, yes, blind people are able to use computers and phones. The amount of people that think that I'm lying about being blind because I'm able to use a computer, a phone, and Reddit is sickening. If you are interested to see how blind people use technology, watch the video, How I Use Technology as a Blind Person, by Molly Burke on YouTube. This will hopefully answer your questions. A lot of people in the comments have pointed out the urgency of the situation, and told me to immediately tell my boyfriend about his friend's behavior. My boyfriend came home around 5 hours after I made that post, and I was planning on telling him everything, but he was in an incredibly bad mood and just wanted to go to bed, so I didn't do it, to be honest. At this point, I still didn't fully realize the urgency of the situation, even though so many people pointed it out. The next day, my boyfriend went to work again, and I decided to wait for him at home because I didn't have the possibility to go anywhere else. But I contacted my parents and told them about my situation. That way, at least someone would know about me if something bad happened. This time, when M32 and M35 came into my apartment, the door was locked. They have a key. I wasn't just uncomfortable with them being there. I was in fact on the verge of having a panic attack. They must have noticed that because they did some disgusting things to me while behaving as if this whole thing was funny. They did not rape me, but what they did wasn't okay. I started screaming, which kind of scared off M35 and M32. And luckily an elderly lady from the floor above heard me screaming. I swear this lady was my guardian angel. She didn't force me to explain anything and just took me to her apartment. She was comforting me for nearly 2 hours, during which I couldn't stop bawling my eyes out. Perhaps this is life's way of telling me to stop being so naive. My dad always told me better safe than sorry. From now on, I will definitely follow this advice. I will never wait for things to escalate like this again. When my boyfriend came home, I was finally able to tell him about everything. I've never witnessed him being so angry. He genuinely thought that his friends were helping me out when he was at work, and he apologized for not taking me seriously when I told him that his friends make me uncomfortable. Of course, things couldn't just end here. My boyfriend was so angry that he decided to go over to his friend's apartment. There was lots of yelling, and it resulted in a physical fight. My boyfriend seems to have no injuries, though. Shortly after, my boyfriend took some time off work, packed our bags, and drove us to my parents' house. We are currently trying to find a new apartment, but it will take some time to find one that is suitable for a blind person. Thank you so much for all of the comments on my original post and all of the private messages. I couldn't answer all of them, but please know that I appreciate every single comment and message, TLDR. I was able to tell my boyfriend everything and am now at my parents' house to avoid any contact with M32 and M35. Final comments. Commenter 1. Never underestimate the power of old German ladies coming to the rescue. When I was a small child, I got locked out of my Opa's apartment, and his neighbor brought me into her apartment and fed me cookies until my mother came back. I remember your old post, and I'm very glad you're all right. Please consider a police report on these men as well. Commenter 2. Only older German women can attain that combo of complete sweetness and warmth and take no bullshit directness. I need to write my Omi. Commenter 3. Please report the friends to the police for threatening to rape you, and for assault. It sounds like something happened, as well as home invasion. The police could easily tack on conspiracy charges, since the two of them planned this in advance. Stories number 4. Am I overreacting by rejecting my boyfriend's proposal because he asked to be open? My F30 boyfriend M31 took me to Edinburgh. It was the 10-year anniversary of our first date on Saturday just gone. We met when we were both at Edinburgh University, so it seemed very romantic to go back to where it all started. I was anticipating something special as he'd booked us into the Caledonian and told me to pack something nice, and he was acting really nervous. It reminded me of how he'd been shy around me when we'd first met. Working up the nerve to ask me out, I ended up asking him. I think he'd been planning to propose at the restaurant we had reservations for, but instead he got down on one knee when we were up on Calton Hill. He held open a ring box and said to me 5 words I'll never forget. Will you open marry me? I laughed initially because I was confused. When I asked him, come again? He repeated the same question. I asked him to explain, and started feeling really shaky. Basically, he says, he loves me and wants to affirm his commitment to me and give me the wedding I deserve. But he also wants to open our relationship up and sleep with other women. And he didn't want me getting the wrong idea that I'm not enough for him, or that he was looking to leave. So he thought if he combined the two proposals into one with the phrase, will you open marry me? I'd understand he wanted to marry me, but also that he wanted to sleep with other women, but that each one is not related to the other. He wants to be my husband. He also wants to sleep with other women. I started crying a bit, which made him panic because I very rarely cry. It was not a quick walk back to our hotel room. He kept saying things to me, but I think I'd gone into shock. I can't remember anything he was saying. Eventually, when we were back in the room, he was cracking nervous jokes and said, you know, you never gave me an answer. I'd stopped crying at this point. I just looked at him and told him no. So he weirdly started prattling on about how that was fine and asking me if I'd thought about what time of year I'd like us to get married. I just stared at him. He kept going. He was taking the attitude that it was a no to having an open marriage, so we just have a monogamous marriage, but that was no problem at all, if that's what I wanted. I asked him to leave me be for a bit because I needed to lie down, to go have a drink somewhere so I could rest up and get ready. He kept telling me how much he loved me, but eventually he did leave. We hadn't come with separate suitcases, so I just put my smalls and a clean blouse in my purse. We both have personal bank accounts separate from the joint one. And I had my card, I left. I was able to book into a Travelodge, which is where I've been staying since. At some point he came back to the hotel and realized I wasn't there, so started ringing and ringing. I texted him I was fine, but I'd need some space. He's been texting me a lot, but I've been ignoring it. I've not done any daft theatrics. People know I'm okay. A lot want to know what's happened. I've just said I don't want to talk about it for now. But I'm fine. The only person I've told in my line manager, who's let me have the week off short notice, but I didn't discuss it, just told. He extended his stay somewhere in town, but is headed home to London now. And he's still texting me. There's apologies. He says he knows he messed up, and he wants to make it up to me. He says he knows I'm reading the messages. He's not a violent man. I don't feel in danger. I just don't think I can go back to the flat. I don't want an open marriage. I don't want to marry him at all. I don't want to see him again. My no was a no to everything. He wants me to just forget the weekend happened and to go back to how things were. But the thought of him makes my skin crawl. But also, I don't have enough money to get my own place in London. I thought about transferring offices, but I've been blowing through my money at a rate of knots with this hotel room. I don't know that I'd be able to cover a deposit and the upfront rent, handle trains back and forth, deal with the move and start my life over. Am I overreacting? I don't want to talk about this with anyone I know in real life. I feel like a joke. My mother died a few years ago, and she's about the only person I'd feel comfortable discussing it with. Up until now I thought we were happy. This has completely blindsided me. Is it reasonable to end a 10-year relationship over this? He says he's sorry and he loves me. What am I supposed to do? Couples therapy? Relate starts from $55 a session, and we can't afford that, and I don't know that I'd want to try. Comments, commenter 1, do you have family anywhere you can stay with? A friend you could rent with? The relationship is obviously over if he makes your skin crawl. So, now the problems are logistical ones. Commenter 2, not OR. Now you know where he stands. You can't go backwards. Leave and move forward with your life. What he did to you this weekend was awful. Never discussing a desire for an open relationship and then throwing it into a proposal. After 10 years, he's the worst kind of asshole. You are young. You can do better. Do not go back. Commenter 3, nor. He purposely combined his marriage proposal with asking if he could open up the relationship, because he thought in your mind, getting married would outweigh your feelings about the other. What a jerk. He could have broached the subject of opening the relationship in a completely different way. Say by asking you if you thought you'd ever get tired of just being with him. Do you feel like you're missing out only being with him? Etc. Instead, he chose the path of manipulation. Commenter 4, surely this is all a bad joke. Will you open marry me? I'm the last to jump to leave him, but kick him in the same mouth those words came from and leave WTF. I wanted to say something like, maybe try the therapy, 10 years might be worth it, but no. He's had 10 years to put this on your radar, yet a proposal is when he breaks it to you. That's disgusting. If you said no to the open shit but for some reason ended up marrying it, I'd just be thinking he is definitely going to cheat at some point. Stories number 5. IF28 found a child's shirt in the belongings of my fiancé M33. I'm sorry if this is long and all over the place. I met my fiancé when we dated as kids in middle school. We reconnected about 2 years ago after living life separately, and meshed so well that we decided to just take the jump. His family lives in Texas. We originally lived in Minnesota with his mother not doing well, so we moved down here to be close. My fiancé has a 2-bedroom that he'd purchased when he first learned of his mother's condition. This was about a year ago, at first after we realized we wanted things long-term. He would fly back and forth every couple weeks or so until I asked him to just stay with me. He had no intention of moving back, and it was kinda you move here or we do long-distance situation. He did not explicitly tell me that, but that is just what I gathered from our situation. After time of thinking, I quit my job and just moved to be with him. I have been here officially for 40 days. Just a bit of backstory. When looking for something in the garage last week, I found a pair of baby-sized Nike shoes. I asked him who they belonged to, and he said he had no idea. I thought nothing of it at the time and just tossed them. 2 days ago, when going through the hamper to do our laundry, I found a small pink bluey t-shirt, probably the size of a 5 or 6-year-old. I immediately remembered the shoes and my mind started to race. I admit I assumed the worst, that he's hiding a kid from me, and blew up a bit. Accused him of lying to me. I started to get emotional and things of that nature. And an argument ensued after I didn't believe him when he swore he had no idea where these things are from. He is an only child, so no nieces. The only family he really talks to here are his parents. He offered no explanation other than simply insisting he has no idea. I pretty much shut down after realizing we were getting nowhere, and have spoken maybe 10 words to him since then. He is not pushing me to either. Feels like I am just here. Since yesterday I am just filled with despair and regret about moving here. And I'm not even sure if I should be. I guess I'm just curious how I can go about this. The mere thought of apologizing for my blow-up and trying to rectify things when he is secretly lying to me about something like that just makes my stomach churn. I don't at all hope, or even want to believe that is the case. He has never given me any reason to feel like this. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. This is so weird. It requires a weird solution. You've got nothing to compare his reaction to. With respect to your findings, I think you should get a child's dress from a thrift store and bundle it into his washing. Then announce it as a new find and ask him what's going on. If his reaction is any different to his previous reactions, you've got your comparison and can decide from there. Please note, I picked a girl item because I thought the other two items sounded like boy stuff. If he's equally nonchalant about it, then there's probably a sane reason somewhere. Reply: this is actually a good idea. I'd never think of that myself. LOL, thank you. I may just consider it at this point. Commenter 2. As someone else pointed out, there's no way you dated in middle school when he's 5 years older than you. He would have been 17 or 18, and either in his senior year of high school or he graduated already. If this is real, the whole thing with the baby shoes and shirt makes me think he's hiding a kid. Reply: we were 12 and 16 when we met. I shouldn't have said dated, but when you're 12, what else do you call it? We were neighbors and liked each other. It was never nefarious. Didn't even care to give those comments a response, honestly. I'm dealing with enough then to read I'm lying, or my fiancé preyed on me. Commenter 3, you don't call it anything other than friends. A 16-year-old with any romantic interest in a 12-year-old is highly disturbing. Especially in this scenario. I'm really concerned that you don't see that. You have unexplained children's clothing in your house with a partner that has a history of interest in children. I know it's hard to think of your partner that way, or yourself as a possible victim, but please think about yourself as a 16-year-old. And whether you could have been sexually attracted to a 12-year-old. Reply: I'm only not thinking of him that way because I know the real dynamic of how our relationship was, even if I'm not articulating it correctly online in the heat of the moment. I appreciate your insight though. Thank you, Commenter 4 girl. The worst case scenario is that he's a child predator. A hidden child would actually be way better than that. I have some questions about him, especially when you say you met in middle school. But he's 5 years older than you. So you were in middle school and he was in high school or what? He's already showed a preference for inappropriate relationships with minors in your own history. I think you need to start looking for more. Don't ignore those feelings of unease. Your gut is telling you something is wrong here and you need to listen. Reply: you're completely right and I do appreciate the insight. But I shouldn't have said dated when I was really just a girl with a crush. We met as neighbors and hung out often. You'd likely perceive that as a relationship too, as a 12-year-old girl. He didn't prey on me and our relationship wasn't sexual, just two kids who were close. Guess I should have clarified all this. Editing to add: I was 12 and he was 16 when we met. His birthday was a few months after. He went to college the year after that. Just for any further confusion, update. Not sure I'm formatting this right, but just wanted to update for those still messaging me and commenting. This is probably anticlimactic for most of you, and in hindsight may be obvious. But please refrain from the negativity or "I told you so" in the comments. Trust me, I have beaten myself up enough. Nothing can be said that I haven't thought to myself already. Someone here suggested I suggest getting cameras to him and gauge his reaction. Thank you so much. If reading, I lost you in the sea of comments. He was very against it and jumped to the conclusion I was trying to catch him in something. A reaction that took me by surprise. After that I said fuck it, and went through his phone. Another popular suggestion, something neither of us had done since knowing each other. So I'd watched him put in the code from the corner of my eye and then went through it when he slept. Found a woman he's been answering calls from while he's working maybe every other day. After my hands stopped shaking, I called from my phone and asked who she is. She asks me who I am and I tell her I'm his fiancé. She tells me she's the mother of his kids and that he's a father of 2 boys and a girl, 10, 7, and 5 years old. That they met in college and have been on and off since then, but they are currently just co-parenting. An obvious lie. She then tells me she was told about me and he'd said I was pregnant and pretty much moved here at random against his will. That I was just a crazy one-night stand while they were on break, and he was just trying to cope a rent. Basically playing this role of the heroic father to a fake baby trying to do right, when in reality he's just a psychotic POS. She seemed more relieved I wasn't pregnant than anything, but that is her issue. Told her about the shirt, and she'd said her kids spent the weekend. Another lie because no one has even been here since I've moved in. Didn't even seem to care. He hid his own children from a woman he was going to marry. Anyway, he doesn't know, but I'm leaving. I'll be using my little savings to get home and stay at a motel until I'm on my feet again. Thankfully, when I left, my boss said I was always welcome back. My flight is in 2 days. Also probably shouldn't have. But I broke his phone too, and said I accidentally spilled water on it. Because about an hour after I called the girl, she texted him, "Call me," and I panicked. I assume she plans to tell him that I know even though I asked her not to. It hurts, and I've been evaluating everything thus far. Every conversation we've had, every little piece that hasn't added up. One thing I will say, although he never begged me to move or anything, we did have numerous convos about the possibility, and a month before I moved here he acted so excited and even sent me a bunch of job listings in the area. I definitely did not stalk him at all, but he clearly wants his baby mama if he's concocted this whole psycho fairy tale to sell her, so I'm honestly and truly done, just trying to remain calm and sane until I'm up and out of his life for good. This whole time he hasn't even asked why I'm not talking to him either. Thankfully IG, because I wouldn't know what to say, and I know he's a garbage parasite, but that just hurts me even more. It's like I really was just nothing this whole time. Uprooted my whole life literally for nothing more than a singular month of playing wife. Now to pick up the pieces and repair 'em all on my own, while his life stays unchanged and he's happy with his family. So yeah, this was probably more of a vent, but at least you guys can stop wondering. This has all happened within the last 48 hours, so I am still collecting myself emotionally. I do appreciate all the support and advice. And to any women currently feeling like something isn't adding up, please trust your gut the first time. Ignoring it will never work out in favor of the relationship. Relevant comments. Commente 1 wa op. I'm so sorry, this is a lot. So they are not together as he lives separately. She says they are on a break, but he owns another property that he's living in it currently. How far away do his kids live? She sounds like she's not entirely truthful as well. I wonder how long he thought he could go on hiding them from you now that you're living together. Reply. Thanks a lot. Yes, I get the feeling she's lying as well, but that is their prerogative. Any woman okay with her kid's dad living a double life to this extent is probably crazy too. They deserve each other, commenter 2. But are they actually together anymore? They could really be broken up and she can't let go. But then it sounds like a super toxic relationship, and I doubt you want to be anywhere near that dumpster fire. And I guess it doesn't really matter as he lied to you about having 3 kids. Reply. Honestly, I did consider this as a possibility, but I feel like it was just my mind trying to justify things, so I stay. My thoughts and emotions have been all over the place, but I'm sure this situation would just get worse over time. Commenter 3. She might be lying about everything. He's not innocent, however, as he knows precisely what's going on, and is hiding it and lying. Reply. Yeah, all I really care about is him hiding 3 kids from me. I can see her lying about the co-parenting and stuff, but I wouldn't want to be with him regardless. Could never trust him again. Commenter 4. I'd leave ASAP. Even if she's lying, he lying more. Just leave a note and go back home. Reply. Yes. Both are liars for sure. Unfortunately, had to wait for the flight most convenient for me 2 days from now, but no note will be left. Slowly gathering my items and will be gone before he's off work. Stories number 6. Am I the a-hole for asking my wife permission to go to a very close friend's wedding overseas 8 hours away? I have a very close friend that will have his wedding next year. He invited me as one of the groomsmen. And of course my whole family, wife and 2 kids, 7 years and 4 years old. Due to financial and circumstances, we cannot as a family attend. So I then asked if I can go by myself instead, and spend max of 4 to 5 days overseas to celebrate with them. Please note that this friend and 4 other closest brothers that I truly love and trust with all my heart will also be there. Please also note that we had an all-boys trip 3 years back as part of a bucket list, and wife approved it. But this time, she got really upset. She said how could I even think of leaving my whole family over a wedding, and that I'm putting the guilt on her, and that I should have realized by myself that it was a no from the get-go. Lastly, she said that I should be a father and be done with my bachelorhood. I'm a single earner but able to afford more than enough for them. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't womanize. I just work and go home, and the only real friends I have are those boys overseas. Now we're not talking for 2 days, and I don't know if I'm the asshole for even asking. Comments. Commenter 1. Due to financial and circumstances, we cannot as a family attend. I'm a single earner but able to afford more than enough for them. These seem contradictory, so it makes me think you're not telling the whole story. Commenter 2. Info. You mentioned the trip 3 years ago. Your wife would have had a 4 yo and 1 yo. Is it possible that she struggled then whilst you were away, and feels that you haven't listened to her on this if you're asking for another trip like it? It might be that the fact you want to tack on extra time to celebrate beyond the wedding is not being considerate of what that means for her at home with the children. Does she get to go on trips like this with her friends, alone? If not, the fact you've already had a big boys trip, and this would be another one, might be the reason. It may also be the context. We can't afford this, so I want to do it alone so I don't miss out. may feel like you're not being a team player, and you're prioritizing your own leisure time at the expense of the family. Commenter 3 info. Has you wife had any breaks from motherhood since the birth of your 4-year-old? And if so, have you been the sole carer for your 2 children? If not, why not? You had an all-boys trip 3 years ago, leaving your wife to care for a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. You state you love these guys with all your heart. Cool, but you chose to get married and have kids? Do you love your wife and children enough to put them first in your life way above these guys? You decide, commenter 4 NTA based on the info provided. But is it possible this is the straw that broke the camel's back? When my children were small, I used to be the sole earner and didn't do drugs, booze, women, etc. But I needed to do more than that. I should have helped more with the kids and around the home. Not saying you're like me, but if you are, you'd be better off changing. Stories number 7. Was informed on the way to the airport that there's no dinner at the wedding. It only gets worse from there. This past weekend, I attended my cousin's wedding in another province, Canada. It would have been an 8-hour drive, so my wife and I decided to fly instead of driving, as we didn't want to go again after our family reunion this summer. On the way to the airport, my mom informed me that there was no dinner, so we'd have to go to my aunt's place between the ceremony and reception. We were both surprised, as the invite and the disorganized wedding website didn't mention this. My mom explained that they originally wanted to elope, but decided to invite 150 people instead, as her justification. On the wedding day, I noticed that the times for the ceremony, cocktail hour, and reception were slightly different on 2 different parts of the website, and also different from the printed invite. The main page of the website didn't mention a cocktail hour at all. We attended the ceremony, which ran on time. Then, everyone was asked to clear out as the intimate family dinner would begin. I believe it was for immediate family and grandparents. I asked my aunt and uncle, who are the groom's parents, about the cocktail hour. Even though they weren't involved in organizing, they gave me a time that differed from one of the posted times. My uncle, who started his own successful business out of high school and is now a multimillionaire, seemed a bit embarrassed by the whole wedding. After the dinner, we headed back for the cocktail hour. It was a full-priced bar with drinks ranging from $7 to $9 CAD. There were no free drinks or wine on the tables because there was no dinner. I had joked at my aunt's house earlier that we probably wouldn't get cake because it wasn't for the peasants. I don't know if there was a cake at the family dinner, but for the rest of us, there were a few different types of store-bought pies in plastic containers on a table where we could serve ourselves. It was better than nothing, I guess. They ended up having a midnight lunch at 10 p.m., and it was tacos in a bag. They had thanked family and friends for helping cook the meat and move tables and chairs between the ceremony and the reception. However, the tacos were a major disappointment because there was no cheese. No cheese of any kind. That was the final straw for me. We briefly interacted with the bride and groom a couple of times. My cousin the groom was very thankful that we attended, while his bride wouldn't even look in our direction. I'm not sure what her problem was, as we had met her twice before, and she had never said more than hello. The venue was attached to a brewery, but unfortunately, they didn't serve any of the beer. Comments. Commenter 1 wanted to elope. Parents wanted a big wedding, so their compromise was to have 150 people travel to attend their wedding and then treat them like crap. Great compromise. Commenter 2. I will never forget when I had to travel for a wedding. It was this quaint little town in Mexico. We took a 2-hour road trip from Mexico City to Morelos. We only got a small salad and frozen pizza. Only the main tables that were for the family got real dinner. Chicken or beef. The rest of us were starving. There was only booze and snacks for us after the dinner. We paid for a weekend at this town. We drove there, and we got no dinner, not even wedding cake. This is why more people should have small and intimate weddings. But they want people to buy gifts from their registry, so they still throw weddings. I think it's in poor taste to have a destination wedding and a registry and not give people a real dinner. Not to mention it was very hot in that town and there was no AC in the venue. Some people are legit awful hosts. Commenter 3. Leaving the store-bought pies fine. Do what fits your budget. In the plastic containers and having the guests self-serve sure is a choice. I understand that culturally, there are certain wedding events or traditions for a restricted guest list. But I just can't imagine instructing someone to tell my guests to go find somewhere else to be while I feed the people I actually care about. Commenter 4 of. That's really bad. I understand they wanted to elope, but they really should've. The way they treated their guests at this wedding was in poor form. No dinner, but they had guests flying in from another province. Full-priced bar. There were no details on the invite. and the details on the website were different in a couple of spots, which caused confusion. People need to do trading their guests as an afterthought. Stories number 8. How can I find peace in my twin sister's death when I'm forced to live with my stepmom who caused it? I-17F had an identical twin sister. We were inseparable and did everything together. She was honestly my best friend. Last year in September, my stepmom had to pick us up from a volleyball game. Our dad usually picked us up, but he was out of town. She was an hour late because she forgot about us. Well, on the way home, she kept ranting about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I haven't forgiven my stepmom. She refuses to acknowledge that she was in the wrong. Even though there were eyewitnesses present, she refuses to accept responsibility for causing the accident. I'm not an angry person. I'm a very calm and not confrontational at all. But I can't even look at her without feeling like she stole from me. She stole my sister's life away, and she acts like my sister never existed to begin with. One thing that really struck a nerve was when I was out at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We had to buy something for my younger brother, and they started a conversation with an old man. I can't remember exactly what they were talking about, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom corrected him by saying, "No, 3. That just made me really sad." I didn't speak to her the rest of the day. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything, because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I often dream about her, but when I wake up and reality hits, it absolutely crushes me. Living is unbearable without my sister. Update. Am I the Ahola for confirming that I-17F wished my stepmom died in a car accident? For some background, my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmom. They ultimately got divorced, which was really hard on our family. My mom ended up moving back to her home country in Europe. My twin sister and I had to stay with our dad. I-17F live with my dad, my stepmom, and my younger brothers last year in September. My twin sister and I had a volleyball game at school. My dad was usually the one who picked us up from our games and practices, but he couldn't that night. My dad was out of town, so our stepmom had to come pick us up. She arrived an hour late because she took a nap and forgot about us. As soon as we got in the car, she started going on a rant about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything, because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I'm not suicidal, but I often think about ending my own life because living is unbearable without my sister. Well, last night, my stepmom made a special dinner for her birthday. After the accident, I stopped eating dinner with the rest of my family. It just feels wrong eating without my sister at the table. So I eat alone in my room. Well, my dad insisted I eat with them downstairs. I protested, but he begged me. Dinner started off normally. My stepmom announced to my brothers 8M, 5M, and I that she was pregnant. My brothers were really happy and asked for the gender of the baby. My stepmom excitedly said that it was a girl. My brothers kept talking about they were excited about getting a younger sister. My stepmom mentioned how they could help decorate her nursery. I looked up and asked her which room would be the nursery. She excitedly said that she was going to use my twin sister's room. She mentioned how she already started removing things from her room in the morning and putting them in the attic. I asked her why she didn't bother telling me before she went ahead and started moving my sister's stuff. It was a big deal to me because aside from me, no one has been in her room since she's passed. Sometimes when I miss her, I sit in her room to feel closer to her. And some nights, I fall asleep in her room. My stepmom got really defensive. She said that I needed to accept that she was having a baby and needed the empty room. I told her that I understood that she was pregnant, but a heads up would have been nice before she started removing things from my sister's room. She looked at me and said that she didn't need to tell me anything, because she was the mother of the household. She said she was doing what was best for the interest of her baby, and she didn't need my negativity. I stayed silent, trying to tune her out. But I snapped when she mentioned how I needed to accept my sister's death and move on. She said something along the lines of, "Your twin passed away and you need to accept that. It's hard, but you've got your father, your brothers, and I plus. You're getting a new sister who you can build an even stronger relationship with. You need to move on because nothing will bring twin sister back. I knew I was getting angry, so I excused myself and left the table. My dad started yelling about how I was being dramatic, and I needed to come back or I'd be grounded. I continued walking away until my stepmom said, "I don't understand what her problem is. She couldn't even bother to be happy about my pregnancy, but she's angry about me moving things out of an unoccupied bedroom." I turned around and stared at her in disbelief. My stepmom often acts like twin sister never existed. An example: 2 months ago, I was at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We were buying a birthday present for my younger brother, and they got into a conversation with an older man. I wasn't paying much attention, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom responded saying, "No, 3. She does stuff like that all the time, which drives me insane." I started going off on her and she sat there quietly. I mentioned how she's been the cause of every major traumatic event in my life. I reminded her that she knowingly started sleeping with a married man. She knew he had a wife and kids, but she didn't care. She broke up my family, sending my mom into a deep depression which ultimately led her to move away. Then I reminded her that she was too preoccupied with ranting about how we disturbed her nap, which ultimately led to a car accident that had me hospitalized for weeks. And I lost my twin sister because of her carelessness. I told her that she had no right to just take things out of my sister's room. And I wasn't angry about her new baby, but the fact that she started boxing and removing stuff from my sister's room without even telling me in advance. Then finally I told her that it was cruel of her to tell me to move on from the traumatic death of my twin sister. She argued back that the accident happened and I was living in the past. She said everything happens for a reason, and God works in mysterious ways. I straight up asked her if she thought that my sister's death could not have been avoided, and she responded saying, "It was just unlucky fate." I reminded her that my sister would be alive if she wasn't distracted. My stepmom then told me that I make her feel like I wanted her to die instead. I just stayed silent and she kept asking me if she was correct. I turned to walk away and my stepmom grabbed my arm. I asked her to let go and she kept saying, "You want me dead, don't you?" I stayed silent again, but she kept repeating it. I eventually got mad and truthfully told her that my life would have been easier that way. She started crying and my dad called me heartless. I did apologize a few minutes later, but my dad snapped and asked me leave my stepmom alone. Since then, my dad has been giving me the silent treatment while my stepmom just avoids me. Am I the a-hole? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You're definitely NTA OP. I'm really sorry for your loss. Your feelings are completely understandable. Your stepmom and dad are huge AH. Your stepmom for various reasons, including not stopping asking. She shouldn't ask if she didn't want an answer. Your dad because he isn't protecting you and getting you the help you need. Can you talk with your mom about it? How involved is she? You're still her child. Is there any adult in your life that you trust and can help you? You need a mental health professional. You need tools to move forward. You have every right to be angry and feel what you feel. Reply, yes. My mom is involved in my life. We text every day and try to FaceTime at least twice a week. But my sister's death was really hard on my mom. My mom's mental health has been rocky for the past 10 years. So I don't want to trigger anything by telling her how bad I'm hurting. A year after my parents got divorced, my grandpa got really sick. He was diagnosed with a terminal illness. My mom decided to go back to Europe to help take care of her dad and spend time with him. She wanted to take my sister and I with her. But my dad fought her in court. Ultimately, we had to stay with our dad in the US, but we traveled to France every summer. Even after my grandpa passed, my mom decided to stay in France. She told my sister and I that going back to the US would mentally destroy her. It was too many negative memories for her, and she wanted to stay close to her mom. Aside from my mom and her family, all I've got is my friends. My dad was never close with his family. He's got an older brother that I've never met, and I honestly don't know much about my grandparents. I wanted to look into therapy, but my dad refused. He doesn't believe that it will be helpful and says that it will fill my brain with garbage. He said that if I needed some advice or counseling, I could talk to him or my pastor, which I don't feel comfortable doing. Commenter 2. How was she not charged if her running a stop sign caused the death? Reply, she's on probation, and I think she also had to pay a fine. Commenter 3. Your dad is worried therapy will illuminate to you just how awful of a human being and father he is. Do you have a plan to get out once you are an adult? Are you planning on attending college university? When you are 18, can you move to France to be with your mom? If you don't have an escape plan yet, I suggest you work on one. Unfortunately, your dad has proven that nothing, not even the death of his child, is enough for him to side with you or fight for you against your stepmonster. Get your necessary documents, passport, birth certificate, social security card, and get a plan in place to leave as soon as you are 18. You are less than a year away. Get ready for it and bounce. Reply. Thank you so much for the idea of an escape plan. I have dual citizenship, so I have thought about moving to France a lot. But honestly, I don't think it's a good idea. I can speak French fluently, and for the most part I can read it, but I can't write in French. And my vocabulary isn't really expanded, if that makes sense. I do really well in casual, normal conversations, but since I'm only really around my family in France, I don't know bigger, more professional words in French, so I'm afraid that might be a problem if I try to find a job there. But I've looked into colleges in my state and toured some with my friends. I found one that I really like, so I plan on hopefully being able to attend once I graduate. My dad keeps all of my important documents, so I'll try to find a way to convince him to give them to me. Update: I'm sorry it took so long to get back to everyone, but a lot has happened in the last few months. To start, thank you all for the overwhelming support. I wasn't able to read most of the responses to my last post, because I went to sleep after posting it. When I woke up, there were several viral TikTok videos about my situation. I didn't know about any of that, but my stepmom's younger sister saw one of the Reddit videos and sent it to their family group chat. And my stepmom saw the video and lost it when she read the comments. She took my phone, laptop, and grounded me right after I woke up. When my dad got home from work, he backed her up. Her entire family was furious, and my dad got yelled at by her parents, and they tried to force me to take the post down. But I wouldn't give them my phone's password, so there's little they could do about that. They kept calling me insensitive and disrespectful for bringing strangers into a private matter. As a part of my punishment, I wasn't allowed to leave my room. They wouldn't allow me to use my phone or laptop to communicate with my mom at all. They said I could get those privileges back after they deemed that I learned my lesson. A week after everything, my stepmom lost her baby, and she blamed me for it. She said I was causing the entire family too much stress. She just kept yelling at me that I did this to her, and she refused to even glance in my direction. She had a huge argument with my dad about how she wanted me gone. She ended up staying with her parents for the night, and my stepmom even tried to turn my younger brothers against me, and it worked with the older one. My dad tried to convince me to apologize to her, but I didn't even understand what I would be apologizing for. His wife's pregnancy was already high risk due to many other issues. She has miscarried 3 babies in the past 2 years. I don't know anything about her medical health, but I once overheard her talking on the phone about an abnormality she had that caused her to lose her other babies. And I just fell into a really bad place mentally after that. 4 days after everything happened with my family, I tried to take my life. My dad and stepmom went out with my brothers, and I tried to overdose on Benadryl. It was the most painful experience of my life. I didn't feel anything at first, but I eventually passed out. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up I started throwing up. I was in so much pain and could barely move. I can't remember much, but I think I passed out again. And my little brother found me passed out and covered in vomit, and my dad ended up calling 911. I ended up in the ER. I can't remember everything because it was a blur, but I had to drink activated charcoal. They ran a bunch of tests, drew my blood, and gave an IV. I was hallucinating for hours, and I woke up in a different hospital. I lied to my doctors about everything because I didn't want to get in trouble, but I was still involuntarily sent to a psychiatrist hospital anyways. My dad was against it, but I was there for a little over a week. I got into a lot of trouble for attempting to take my life. My dad didn't speak to me for a week after I came home, while I was gone. My dad read all my journals where I wrote about how much I hated myself, my life, and wished my sister was still alive. He also found out that I was hurting myself by reading it. He eventually made me read all the pages out loud to him, my stepmom and my pastor. And my pastor gave me a 3-hour lesson on letting go of anger and the past. They also took away my door because I lost that privilege. And my stepmom made it verbally known that she didn't want me there anymore. My dad told me that he was going to send me to a behavioral camp teen residential program for troubled kids. Since I tried to take my life, I still didn't have any of my electronics back, and they refused to leave me alone for extended periods of time. So I had to stay in the living room all day, and could only go in my room when it was time for bed. My dad made me keep my door open while I showered, so my stepmom could monitor me. I wasn't allowed to play volleyball this year as a punishment, which really sucked. I just felt so stuck, and I knew that I'd be sent away to one of those awful camps. I've heard so many bad stories about them. So I took my stepmom's iPad in the middle of the night. I was able to call my best friend. I explained everything to her. She told her parents, and they agreed to help me. I packed a few bags, took a bunch of things that remind me of my sister, and planned to leave 3 nights later. I was able to get my birth certificate and social security card, because I told my stepmom I needed them for a job interview at our church's daycare. She surprisingly gave them to me for 2 nights. My best friend would drive to my house at around 3 a.m. to get some of my things and my sister's old stuff. And then on the 3rd night, I finally found where my dad was keeping my phone and laptop. So I took them back, and I left with my best friend that night. I don't want to accidentally incriminate anyone, so I can't say too much about what happened the night I left or who I was with afterwards. But my dad tried to press charges on several people, but that went nowhere. He gave up on trying to get me to go home because my stepmom was happy with me gone anyways. It's been 3 months since I left. I'm happy to say that I'm safe. I haven't heard from my dad or his wife in weeks, and from what I've heard, they're not on good terms. I'm currently staying with my mom's cousin, but once I graduate high school, I plan on moving to Europe to be closer to my mom. I turned 18 today. I'm happy that I no longer have to legally see my dad again. Also, thank you for those who personally messaged me, gave me legal advice, or even suggested I look into pursuing a lawsuit against my stepmother. Please excuse any spelling errors. This brought back a lot of negative emotions. Relevant comments, commenter 1. Okay, read both stories. But where the fuck is your real mom in all this? No calls, emails, TXTs, nothing? She moved to Europe. Why can't you move to here and live with her and finish your education there? Or even more so. Why didn't you move in with her after your twin sister died? Her daughter died. For some background, my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmom. They ultimately got divorced, which was really hard on our family. My mom ended up moving back to her home country in Europe. My twin sister and I had to stay with our dad. What is this had to stay with your dad thing? At this point, Aswell, you are driven to suicide and already moved out. I would have taken the fastest plane ticket and see her because I would need her. And she would need you after one of her daughters died? Well, whatever the case, good luck. It's just weird to me. I would rather fail a year of education and start over than life in that household. Reply: It's complicated. My mom and dad divorced when I was 8 years old. My mom moved to France a little after my 9th birthday. But before that, they had split custody. My mom tried to get full custody of us because she wanted to take us to France with her. But my dad fought her in court and he ended up winning. My dad is significantly wealthier than my mom, so he had better legal presentation and tried to drag out the process for as long as possible. Ultimately, my dad was awarded full custody of us, and we only got to see my mom during the summer when visited her in France. We still kept in contact with her through calls and text messages throughout the year. After my sister's death, my mom did come to the funeral. She and I pleaded with my dad to allow me to live with her, but he wouldn't allow it. And she didn't have the money to fight him in court. She tried reaching out to his pastor and his family to convince him, but they weren't interested in getting involved. My dad threatened to take legal action against her if she didn't leave his family alone. And after that, I didn't have regular contact with my mom because she was struggling with her mental health and alcoholism. But she's been to rehab, has been sober now for almost a year, and she's in therapy. We talk every day and she's been my rock through all of this. She's doing a lot better and came to see me last month for Thanksgiving. And I've been staying with her cousin. That's been really nice. New update: I don't think I can keep living without my twin sister anymore. My twin sister was killed almost 2 years ago in a car accident caused by my stepmother. My life has been a living hell since, and I've tried to find the will to keep going, but I'm so tired. I think of her every single day, and everything reminds me of her. I remind myself of her just by looking in the damn mirror. I don't want to forget about her, but it just hurts so much being constantly reminded by everything that she is gone. My sister was such a beautiful soul. I fucking hate that her last moments on Earth were so horrible. Before she passed, I hadn't been away from her for more than 12 hours. I'd give anything just to see her again. I can't explain how I feel. I don't necessarily want to die, but I don't want to be here anymore. Every day is a blur, and I feel like I'm just going through all the motions. The only thing keeping me alive is my mom. She's been doing really good with staying sober, but she'd probably go back into alcoholism if I ended my life. I just don't know how long I can keep staying for her. I know how fucking selfish it is of me to even be thinking of it. But I'm in pain all the time. I just want it to stop, and nothing helps. Top comments, commenter 1. It sounds like you need to seek some support for your mental health. What you've gone through is not a small thing. It is life-changing and traumatizing. Please reach out to a therapist and maybe seek some grief support groups in your area. I don't know you, but I have a sister, and I know that if I died, or she died, we would want the other to be happy and healthy. I do hope you can find some peace. I know that's what she would want for you, commenter 2. Grief is such a huge, obnoxious, and cruel jerk. It punishes us for losing people we love and then keeps popping up to punish us in new mean ways when we least expect it. You're not alone, and you need to get some help from a therapist or grief group or family or friends or all of those places. I'm not going to minimize how you feel. It's terrible, but you are worth staying alive for. You deserve all the love and care you give to your sister and your mom. Commenter 3, your sister would not have wanted you to hurt yourself. Your sister loved you. She would have wanted you to be happy and remember the good moments you shared. Please consider honoring her by living your best life. I agreed. Your mom wouldn't do well with both of you gone. Please seek medical services for your mind-body to help you heal from your loss. Life will get better with treatment and time. Blessings, commenter 4. I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine losing a twin. Please see a medical professional for intervention as soon as you can. Suicidal ideation comes on a scale. And I don't necessarily want to die, but I don't want to be here anymore, is very much a recognized spot on the scale towards the danger zone. I know it may feel like it all the time, but you are not alone. Therapy, medication, and mindfulness exercises are all possible things that could help. But step 1 is recognizing that you're not doing okay and that you're in danger of harming yourself. And seeking help. Feel free to DM me if you want to talk. Stories number 9. Aita Reddit. For physically defending myself from a grown man when I was late bringing his daughter home. Me 20 male, my date 20F and her father 40M. I had taken an interest in this girl, and before taking her out on our first date, I found out that she still lived her parents and she had a curfew. I respected that she was smart enough to pick a college in her town and staying with her parents. I planned on taking her out to putter golf and have our conversation part done there while we ate some walking tacos. Upon picking her up, her father is this much older man and according to my date, was very traditional on dating. He said that I need to have her home by 9:30 sharp. I said okay and promised to take her home on time. We had our date, and it was a fun interaction. Unfortunately, on the way home, there was this jerk who wouldn't let us pass and was going almost 15 below the speed limit. I ended up arriving at her house late. I planned to explain myself when walking her up the walkway to her door, until her father physically grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and throw his free hand in a fist. Out of reaction, I had gotten behind him and twist his arm. I kept him there as he swore at me and said I will never date his daughter. I let go and sped off in my car. Later my date called me, telling me that I need to apologize for attacking her father and hurting his pride. I do feel bad that I did this, but I also feel justified for what I did. Comments, commenter 1, NTA. You are 100% legally allowed to defend yourself from assault. I'd reconsider if this is a situation you want to deal with. Commenter 2, run from all of these people. They sound like they're from 1910. No date is worth this hassle. Commenter 3, NTA, he touched you first? So what you hurt is pride. Even if the girl is great, I would move on so you wouldn't have to deal with him again. Commenter 4, she'll always be daddy's girl. Run, because you'll be dating her father too. Stories number 10. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that I didn't want to come home after coming from a health resort with the 2 kids? While he didn't do anything? Hi, so I 27F and my husband 33M. We are married for 7 years already. We got 2 kids, a girl 3 and boy 5. He works for 40 hours a week while I work 32 hours a week. He dresses them and brings them to childcare and makes them ready for bed and puts them to sleep. I do the household, cooking, laundry. He helps me from time to time, but only if I ask. He goes with the dog in the morning and I go in the evening. It was always like that, and I never had any issues so far. Till I went to a therapeutic center with our 2 kids for 3 full weeks. In the time I was gone, I asked him to do 3 normal chores: cleaning the toilet, sending a packet back, and cleaning the laundry in our kids' room. He did nothing of that. I flipped and went mad. And he said he did so many things like cleaning out the garden from stones, even though they would be collected in Johnnery, so his work wasn't necessary. He told me I should appreciate that he does household stuff. And it's my own fault I went to a therapeutic center I could stay with the kids, and he could have taken care of the kids like always. He told me I suck at communicating because I'm sick of it. Telling him what to do, after a few arguments, I flipped and basically told him I'd rather didn't come back home. Because now he went on a work trip and I'm now alone with the kids and need to clean up after the 3 weeks. Now the question, am I the a-hole and what should I do after he comes back? Edit. I'm not a native-speaking American and thought that health resort is the term what we use in Germany as Mutterkind-Kur. I changed that. I went to a therapeutic retreat because of overload with everything. Comment NTA, I immediately thought about Mutterkind-Kur when I read your post, dear readers. Especially American ones. This kind of several-week-long therapy stay that includes childcare is really great to support both mothers and fathers who desperately need help. And yes, apart from a €10 a day copay for food, it gets covered by public health insurance. But nowadays, it's incredibly hard to get approved by a doctor, the healthcare provider. This isn't a spa for stressed-out parents. This is a stay for parents who have such severe mental or physical health problems that they are basically falling apart. OP, it says a lot about your husband that he has let it go this bad for you to need this stay. He basically had a 3-week-long child-free vacation and was too lazy to do very easy chores. I am so sorry. Update. Hi. So after a year, I just wanted to share what happened and how it's now going. After he came back from his business trip, he brought me flowers and chocolate. We sat down together, and I openly addressed all the issues that had been eating away at me over the past few years. He also brought up the things that had bothered him. I also told him that if we didn't work on our relationship, separation would be my only option, and that if he didn't improve his attitude toward hygiene, I wouldn't want the children to stay with him if we separated. He was immediately very eager and wanted us to get to work on things right away. So we allowed ourselves a quiet phase for 2 months. We lived in the same house but slept in separate bedrooms. We also set up a detailed plan for each week about who would do what, and each of us got our own free time while the other took care of the kids. I have to say, it's only been going uphill since then. We haven't argued as much, and if we did, it was only about minor things. There were no big fights anymore. He really started to take care of the things that had bothered me, and now takes his own initiative around the house. I hardly have to tell him anything anymore. Of course, some things have stayed the same, and I still clean some things myself because he simply doesn't see those as a priority, but I'm glad that in the end, things turned out well. Thank you for all the kind messages from the previous thread. Many of them really made me laugh and sweetened my day. It definitely made that time a lot more bearable. Stories number 11. My husband's son. 28. M confessed his shameful secret that my husband would want to know about. How do I? 34. F. Respect my duty to my husband without ruining my relationship with his son? My husband Daniel is 60. Didn't know where to add that in the title. I know that's a big age difference and Reddit is against that. But I met Daniel when I was a grown woman in my 30s. On top of that, my husband looks better than most men my age. So my husband and his son aren't very close. Daniel wants to mend their relationship, but it's difficult because there's a sort of cultural clash between them. Daniel was raised in a culture where affection is shown through sacrifice and discipline, while his son is American. So his son expects more emotional openness and outright affection than Daniel is really capable of. This has definitely led to a lot of resentment, and when I came along, that sadly made things worse. His son was really unhappy about it. His son just takes an issue with me, specifically. And he's been taking that out on his dad. He usually ignores me. And when he doesn't ignore me, he can be nasty. Daniel has asked me to do my best to put up with it, and somehow try to have a good relationship with him. I've tried, and I think maybe that finally helped. Daniel is visiting his mom, and I was unable to go. I can't take that much time off work right now. So, I've been home alone except for the few days when his son decides to stay here. His son doesn't have his own place. He usually stays with his mom, but sometimes he'll be here. I don't really want to get into the details of what happened, but the other day, he was here, and I sort of understood what was going on, but later that night he got drunk, and we had a long conversation, and at some point he basically confessed what he's been doing. Let's say he's been gambling, even though that's not it. He told me that he's been gambling for many years. He spent a lot of money on it. He doesn't feel like he can stop. He even sought therapy for it, and that didn't help him. He feels like he can't have a normal life because he has this constant urge to gamble. The morning after that, He came up to me and literally started crying and asked me not to tell his dad anything. But I know Daniel. I know his values. I know he wouldn't want his son to live like this. His son says Daniel wouldn't do anything to help him, but I believe that's because he perceives Daniel to be as cold and uncaring when he really isn't. I don't know what Daniel could do to help, but I know that he would want to know. I thought I'd try to convince his son that he needs to tell him what he's been going through, but his son went back to his mom's place. He isn't here now, and I wonder if he'd avoid me even more now that I know all of this. I feel like just telling Daniel might make his son go no contact and ruin their relationship altogether. And if I don't tell him, his son might like me, which would make Daniel happy, but it feels like I would be betraying my husband if I just sat on this. Commenter 1. If you want him to never confide in you again, telling his father is a good way to do that. Commenter 2. Do not tell your husband. Urge his son to tell him, and if he won't, encourage him to tell his mom. If all else fails, help him research treatment centers and see if he qualifies. Inpatient is highly recommended as it sounds like he wants to get help, which is a good sign. I find it odd that both parents are allowing a 28-year to couch surf but don't know he has a problem. Are you sure Daniel and his ex don't already know? Commenter 3. Honestly, you are likely to get better advice if you spell out what the son's gotten himself into. This is a totally anonymous forum, and I think the details do matter here. Stories number 12. All items on floor are trash. Have fun rooting through the dumpster. I'm a custodian for an office building. I clean bathrooms, take out trash, vacuum, etc. I clean in the morning before the office opens. When collecting trash, I'd occasionally find some loose papers under behind desks, beside the trash can, or otherwise on the floor. Since I'm not sure if these papers are trash that missed the can or important documents that fell on the floor by accident, I pick them up and put them on the corner of the nearest desk for the workers to either file them away or toss them. Better safe than sorry. However, the manager did not like this habit. She came in early one morning, expressing disgust that trash is being placed on people's desks. Obviously, I never put actual trash like food wrappers or crumpled papers on desks. I explained my reasoning for my habit and expressed that I didn't want to risk tossing something important. My manager told me that everything on the floor is trash and the workers aren't such immature slobs to drop important documents on the floor. I agreed and said I'd never do it again. Flash forward several weeks. My manager came in early again and expressed concerns because a filing cabinet had tipped over the day, and despite picking up the papers, they were still missing a few important documents. She asked if I'd seen them. I reminded her that since everything on the floor is trash, the documents were probably thrown away. She was irate, saying, but this was an exception since a filing cabinet fell over. I asked her how I was supposed to know that when I'm not there during the day and was otherwise not informed to look out for these documents. That's when the situation dawned in this woman's eyes that she was her fault. She stumbled through some excuses before demanding I go to the dumpster and find the papers. I told her that the office was opening in 15 minutes and I still had work to do. She stormed off and said she'd start looking in the dumpster. While I cleaned, I knew I'd face her again before leaving my car as parked by the dumpster. So I thought of what to say to her as the final nail in the coffin. Sure enough, when I finished my work and walked out, the manager and a few other wokers who'd arrived were rooting through the dumpster. When the manager spotted me, she demanded I come help. I delivered my prepared line. Ma'am, my job description is to take out trash. Your job description is to ensure the safety and confidentiality of your client's files. I walked away to, in my head, a cartoon-esque villain scream of outraged failure from my manager. A few hours later, and I got a text saying there will now be a special inbox shelf for me to place any papers found on the floor for the workers to go through. Comments. Commenter 1. I learned early on to treat janitorial staff with more respect than the owners. Yes, more respect. Reply. You suddenly learn who to respect when the toilet paper is 2-ply, the coffee filter's cups aren't restocked, and the kitchen fridge is cleared out. I haven't done any of this since it's a little cruel in my opinion, but custodians have more power over your workplace than many realize. Commenter 2. Do not mess with your cleaning staff. I had to reset attitudes where I worked, because standard was to ignore their existence or get annoyed when they came around to empty trash cans. I made a point to thank them, and when I got weird looks, pointed out that I didn't want to have to make a trip to the dumpster myself, so if they were doing it for me, I was going to be nice to them. A few weeks later, I dropped a $20 as I was leaving for the night. It was tucked under the edge of my monitor stand the next morning, so yay. Reply: custodians definitely know more than people think and know the building's inner workings more too. A lot of people dismiss me as the uneducated janitor without realizing that I and many others actually have amazing degrees, skills, or knowledge. I've told people they don't need to talk to me like I'm 5 years old and that I can comprehend big words. They didn't take me seriously until I showed them I was a published author. Commenter 3: at a bar I used to work at, me and one of the owners were tossing out something into the dumpster, which was just emptied the previous day. Then we realize we threw out the wrong thing. Well, my boss, she is barely over 5 foot, and I'm built like a daddy long legs, so I go in to get it. As soon as I get into the almost empty dumpster, I realize I'm not alone in the dumpster. There is a trapped and panicking squirrel in it with me, completely freaking out. It has no way to get out. I don't want to go near it, and my boss is now laughing so hard she can barely help. Eventually, she hands me a long plank of wood. Took forever, but it was probably 10 seconds. Plop it in one of the corners and the squirrel finally can climb out and dips. And I then get whatever it was and get out too, chuckling and definitely blushing over the incident. I can't even remember what the hell it was we accidentally thrown out. So it could be worse. She could be trapped in the dumpster with a frightened squirrel. Stories number 13. IF25 just found out the man M27 I've been seeing for 10 months is getting married this weekend, and I don't know what to do. In January this year, IF25 met someone M27 who I clicked with instantly. He was at the time the new owner of the restaurant I work at and still is. And from the moment we met, there was an instant connection. He was sweet, attentive, kind, and so loving, and we had so much in common, and just everything I thought I wanted in a potential partner. About a month into dating, he opened up about his ex-partner, who he also has a 5-year-old child with. He told me that she had cheated on him multiple times, and that they had split up around October 2024 because of that, and a fair few other issues. He also mentioned that they were supposed to get married this October on the 18th. Things between us started to get rocky around March. He told me he was unhappy with his life, and that things hadn't gone the way he wanted, and after that, he started pulling away emotionally, and we had a few discussions about where we were going to go from there. But things remained somewhat hopeful. Sometimes he'd cancel dates or change our plans, but his reasoning was always his son, so I had no choice but to be understanding, and of course I wanted to be. Even though he left me alone in a hotel room for 3 hours on my birthday, it was so hard to even see him in general anyway because he was so busy. Throughout March, April, and the majority of May he'd come back and tell me he missed me, pull me close again, only to then pull away again. It was like an emotional roller coaster with him 24/7, and I never ever knew where I stood or what he really wanted out of us. By late August or early September, I started to really question where I stood with him. It had been 9 months by this point, and he still hadn't asked me to be his girlfriend. In fact, he explicitly said we weren't together once or twice without me even bringing it up. When I asked why, he told me he wasn't ready, that things were complicated because of his son, and that if his ex found out about me, she'd stop him from seeing his son. Eventually, I couldn't handle the confusion or emotional back and forth anymore, so we decided to call things off. But with the mutual understanding that we'd both work on our own issues, such as him going to therapy over his anxieties, and we would reconnect in the future and come back healthier. Fast forward to now. Last week on Wednesday, the 8th of October, I started having this gut feeling something about the supposed wedding date just didn't sit right with me anymore at all. I saw him at work with some friends for a drink that evening, and out of the blue he mentioned booking off the weekend of the 18th to spend time with his son. He'd never said that before, or really ever mentioned his weekend plans unless I asked him. So I asked him directly, "Please be honest. Is something going on that weekend?" He looked me dead in the eye and said no. The wedding wasn't that day, and I knew that wasn't true. We got into quite an argument over it where he said he loved me, but he doesn't know how he feels anymore, that he's confused, that he doesn't know what to do about anything anymore. And he genuinely looked like a shell of a human that night. That same night, he drove me home and kissed me before I got out of his car, which in hindsight was wrong of me to let happen. Fast forward to yesterday, 14th of October, I still couldn't shake the feeling at all, and I did some digging and found her Spotify profile where there was a newly created wedding playlist, and my heart sank. I ended up trying to find whatever I could online and on socials, and ended up finding and calling the venue, pretending to be a family friend, sending a card, and they confirmed it was them. He's getting married in 3 days. A month after we called things off, I was and still am absolutely crushed. I confronted him immediately over text, and he told me again that his fiancée, or whatever she is to him, is controlling and nasty, and has threatened to stop him from seeing his son if this wedding doesn't go ahead. He said she's been pressuring him for months, unbeknownst to me, and that her father has cancer. So she's using that as another reason to push forward. I asked why he wouldn't go to court if things were really that bad, but he didn't have any reasonable answer other than he thinks it would be miserable for him if the only way for him to be able to see his son were to go to court, and that children with single parents are miserable. He said all of his friends and family dislike her, and that he feels trapped, and that she has a hold on him. On the phone, he begged me not to tell her, saying it would ruin everything, and she'd stop him from seeing his son. He told me he loves me and misses me and that he wishes things could have been different, but that he's scared and feels stuck. I loved him so much, and I really believed we had something genuine. Now I just feel disgusted, betrayed, and completely lost. I don't even know who to talk to, because I've never met anybody else in a situation like this before. I don't know what to do. Do I tell her? Do I believe him when he says he's being forced into this? Or is that just another layer of lies to keep me quiet? I feel like I've lost my grip on what's real, and I am really struggling mentally. All I have done is cry for the past 24 hours. I also feel like if I do tell her and he has been cheating, court would favor her argument, and then he really would get to see his son less. And that is not his child's fault, and not something he asked for at all. Edit. All I want to do is ask her and find out the truth. I really do. He just kept saying over and over again that all his son is the only thing that matters to him, and losing access to him would break his heart. It makes me feel so guilty. He is also still my boss, and I feel like I'll lose my job instantly if I go against him. And I'm aware that sounds selfish, but I can't currently afford to lose my job too. Edit 2. Thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time to comment. I genuinely appreciate it. I do want to tell her the truth, but I'm going to take the time to look for professional advice first, as he's also my direct employer and this isn't a large company with an HR department, but also look for a new job ASAP. I just want to make sure I handle everything the right way and protect myself before I decide what to do next. The only feeling I can't shake is that this will affect a little boy who never asked to be a part of this. I also want to add that I was completely blindsided by this, and did not know that he was still engaged. He told me it was called off, and that they were completely over. Comments. Commenter 1 girl, don't be naive. He's been lying to you this whole time. She was never the ex. She was always the current fiancé. You were the side chick. You need to find a new job, and then cut this pose out of your life forever. Commenter 2, boo-hoo, poor him, playing the victim. He just cares about himself. If you tell her, let it be because of sisterhood and not because you two could be together. You and him are over. Commenter 3. Courts these days don't factor infidelity into custody determinations, unless it adversely impacted the child. Tell her so she can get tested and get tested yourself. Commenter 4. Okay, hun? I'm giving you a pass as you're still quite young, and we all make mistakes. But you've been comprehensively played, so have not one more thing to do with him, and take some time for yourself. You'll recognize the signs if you come across these kinds of shenanigans from a man again. I would certainly want to know if my fiancé had been cheating. So certainly tell her if that's what you want. However, be prepared for fallout from both of them. She may have misplaced anger towards you, for example, and he may seek retaliation. I'm not saying this to stop you doing it, just pointing out that people can behave unpredictably and forcefully in this type of situation. Lastly, you'll probably go through a process of, how did I not see? I feel really stupid. And I just want to assure you that there are plenty of this type of selfish and manipulative person in the world. And many of us reading your post will have simultaneously been rolling our eyes at his antics, while also remembering times we've been taken in by a credible fuckboy live and learn X. Stories number 14. Police have informed me that my DNA was connected to the unidentified victim of a historic homicide. Yesterday, I was contacted by the police in a province I am not from, I'm Canadian, informing me that my DNA has been found to be connected to the victim of a very old cold case in Canada. Not exactly how I thought my day was going to go at all, but very interesting. When speaking with the detective, I was informed of the individual's presumed heritage, and which side of my family the link was made from. But the catch, my grandma knew very minimal about her father, and a relative of mine has been working on a family tree for years but struggled. So here I am, With nothing to go off of, no idea where to begin. And in 24 hours I've now learned that that entire side of my family was extremely well documented, with multiple records of our entire ancestry tracing all the way back to 1500. Turns out we have been living with a completely unnecessary mystery all of these years regarding our history. So how far back on this family tree should I be handing over? Who should I include? Any help would be appreciated. Please note that I have taken all proper precautions to ensure that this is legitimate, and it truly was the police, not a scammer. Comments. I feel this is generating an overall sense of healing in my family. My grandmother knows next to nothing about her father and his family, and I've now seen her move to tears with new discoveries several times in the last 36 hours. Knowing you belong somewhere, aren't alone, and have family that shared common traits with you somewhere, sometime, is so healing for her. I hope that we are able to find this Jane Doe's name. We have one person on the tree that we actually think it may be as of this morning. It will be one of the great achievements of my life as well. Commenter 1. Hello? I am a Canadian forensic genealogist working in Toronto. Your case isn't one of ours, but thank you for being willing to help out with it. Sometimes we do get stuck with the matches often either too distant, or not enough matches and have to reach out to potential relatives in order to get closer and narrow down the tree some more, or to fill in more info about a family branch we are really stuck on. Many people we've contacted have helped pull the case together. We only use GEDmatch and family tree DNA to see matches to the Doe kits, although the tree building part is done on Ancestry. If anyone in the comments here wants to help out with Doe cases, please upload to these two sites. We don't ever handle anyone's DNA file or results. We only see if there's a match or not. If you or anyone has any questions about the process, or any questions about IGG in general, please don't hesitate to ask. Commenter 2. I do forensic genealogy for cold cases, and we look at public genealogy databases such as Gedicom for any matches to the suspect DNA. We then trace that match's DNA back to the estimated grandparents, then the same with each match to triangulate the common ancestor, then we work forward from there. It's a reverse process than regular genealogy where you and the names you know and work backwards. Reply. How can my family tree be of use to the investigation? What can I do as a seemingly random ancestor to be useful? The detective shared with me that the other matches there weren't many, haven't been willing to help them, but I'd like to give them all I can. Commenter 3. You share at least some DNA with the subject, which means you share a common grandparent. It could be generations back, which means they are building a tree of all the descendants of that grandparent to get a list of potential possibilities of an even closer match. Commenter 4. I would think they are looking for more of your family to test, in order to be more confident about how closely related this lady is to you. And also which branches she's related to. They're probably hoping your cousins on other platforms will transfer their DNA tests to GEDmatch to help their investigation. Reply. My grandmother is alive and willing to test. Othram wanted one generation above me, so police will be sending us consumer kits for my mother and grandmother. Her siblings are alive, but likely unwilling, and my cousins are uploading their data to GEDmatch now. Commenter 5. Othram is a one-of-a-kind lab in the US doing amazing work to help identify victims and/or their killers using genetic genealogy. There is a TV show called Genetic Detectives with Nancy Grace, where they talk about Othram and GEDmatch used for this type of investigative work, as you have to opt in to your DNA being used in a lot of their episodes. Othram Labs also started DNA Solves, which is like a GoFundMe or Kickstarter that you can donate funds to help police departments raise funding to pay for the DNA tests to solve these cold cases. Commenter 6. There are some very old public Canadian cold cases I'm aware of, but Saskatoon Jane Doe is the oldest, and she was estimated to be dumped in a well around 1915. Born maybe 1870s. Commenter 7. I hope it's the Saskatchewan well lady. I always look for updates on her. Update. Police have informed me that my DNA was connected to the unidentified victim of a historic homicide. Many people thought I was being scammed, and a shocking amount of people guessed correctly with very little information. Through forensic genealogy, the Saskatoon woman in the well was given her name back. Her name is Alice Spence. Please note, I am not an immediate relative. Please respect their privacy. Saskatoon Police News Conference. Saskatoon Police identify century-old remains of woman in the well, found in 2006. 100-year-old Saskatoon mystery solved. Woman in the well, identified as Alice Spence. Comments. Which service did you use? I'd love for my DNA to be used to help a cold case if there are any, but not sure which services allow law enforcement use in Canada. Commenter 1, if you test with Ancestry, which has the largest number of users, you can download your results and then upload to GED Match, where you can indicate that you want to share with law enforcement. You should check their site to see how it works in Canada. OOP. When someone assumed the deceased was her great-grandparent, I am not the woman in the article. I am a very, very distant relative. Commenter 2. I was one of the investigative genetic genealogists on this case. Thank you for being willing to help with it. Alice Spence is now the oldest Doe case in Canada to have been solved with IgG. Stories number 15. My husband hit me during a fight about his hoarding. The preacher I trusted told me to self-reflect. Am I really responsible for this? I 30F need some clarity and maybe just someone to listen. I feel so confused, hurt, and gaslighted right now. My husband 36M has a long-standing habit of hoarding toys. Yes, toys. He buys collector's items, figurines, model kits, and all kinds of collectibles. It's honestly taken over our entire house. Every room, the cabinets, under the beds, and even drawers meant for clothes or daily essentials are filled with his things. I barely have space for my own personal belongings. I only allow myself to keep 2 bags for work because there's literally no room to make space for his ever-growing collection. He has even started throwing away my kids' belongings, including their drawings, toys, and practical items. While keeping all of his own, our home is suffocating under the clutter he refuses to part with. The other night, he said he wanted to tidy up a room for our toddler. That room used to be his toy storage, so I was cautiously hopeful. But instead of decluttering, he simply moved all the toys into the living room. So now our main living space, where the kids are meant to play, where we eat, and where we relax, is just another storage room for his collection. Meanwhile, he's still buying new toys. Just in the last 5 days, he has purchased several more. The fight that night. When I saw the living room filled with his toys again, I was furious. I told him this wasn't okay, and that we needed space for the kids. His response? If you don't have enough money to get a bigger house, don't give birth to 2 kids. That was beyond hurtful. I'm currently on maternity leave and only 3 months postpartum. I've been physically and emotionally exhausted. And I'll admit I was extremely emotional in that moment. I lost it. I slapped his chest a few times out of frustration. Then I picked up one of his toy figures and threw it into the trash. That's when he snapped. He bit me, scratched me, and punched my arm. He left visible bruises and scratches on my body. I ended up crying in pain and shock, and all he said was, "Stop acting like you're the victim." Since that night, my husband has been apologizing repeatedly. He keeps saying he didn't mean it, that he lost control, and that he regrets what happened. But something in me has changed. Even though I hear his apologies, I can't shake the belief that once a man starts hitting a woman, that's the end of the relationship. Honestly, divorce is already on my mind. I don't feel safe anymore. I don't trust that it won't happen again. I can't raise my children in a home where violence is ever considered an option. I told our preacher what happened. He's someone who has been acting like a marriage counselor between us. He's from the same church my mother-in-law attends, to be honest. I've always felt like my MIL spoils my husband and excuses everything he does. I wouldn't be surprised if she's been bad-mouthing me to the preacher behind my back. In the past, when my husband was emotionally abusing me, calling me a bad mother and constantly insulting me, I suggested that we go to a professional counselor. I believed his childhood trauma might be part of the reason he behaves this way. But the preacher said, "No need to go to professionals. Just give your pain to God, He will heal it." Now, even after my husband has physically assaulted me, I went back to the preacher hoping for support, and he told me this: you need to self-reflect on what responsibility you carry for this outcome. If you threw something he valued in the trash, are you surprised he got angry? He didn't mean to hurt you. He just lost control. He made me feel like it was my fault for being hit, like I had provoked him, like his violence was understandable and my reaction was the problem. I can't believe someone in spiritual authority would say that to me. I feel betrayed, humiliated, and even more alone. I have 4 questions. Am I really responsible for being hit by my husband? Am I right to call this domestic abuse? Why would a preacher, someone I trusted, say something like that to me? Is divorce the only option now that physical violence has happened? I'm trying to stay strong for my kids, but I feel like the people who should be helping me are the ones making me feel the worst. Thank you for reading. I truly appreciate any insight or support you can give. Commenter 1,1, no 2, yes 3. Because they are a dumbass religious fanatic who believe that marriage is sacred is more important than your health and happiness. Be safe. Abusers get the most dangerous when their prey tries to escape the prison. Get all your ducks in a row and leave without alerting him to your plans. Commenter 2, your husband is an abusive piece of shit. Your preacher is no better. This may be the first time, but it will not be the last. Get out now. Commenter 3, I'm an ordained member of the clergy. This pastor is wrong. Hitting you is inexcusable. Please. Get yourself and your kids out of there as soon as possible. No, you are not responsible. 2. Yes, it is domestic abuse. 3. This guy is probably inculcated with patriarchal mores that say that keeping the family together at all costs is of paramount importance. Needless to say, I disagree with that 100%. As to your 4th question, it's up to you. But will you ever feel safe with your husband again? Commenter 4.1 No, he didn't snap. He wanted to hit you for binning his toy to punish you and maintain control. He made a decision to hit you and felt justified. You can't make anyone, let alone a romantic partner, hit you. He then gaslit you and blamed you for his actions and for your being upset by being physically attacked. You're healing from pregnancy. He knows you're recovering and vulnerable, and he does not care. 2. Yes, this is abuse. This behavior will escalate. He will hit your kids. Leave him. He doesn't respect or care for you and the kids. You are not safe. He will escalate and keep abusing you. He will choke you, or worse. He used to raise his voice and now he bit you and raised his fist. He will do it again if you stay. Enough is enough. He has contempt for you and will become even more volatile if he realizes you want to leave him. He may even try and kill you to keep control and stop you leaving. Please be careful and plan your exit carefully and meticulously. Your safety and the kids is the priority. Spending money on toys and taking over the entire house is financial abuse. Leaving you and the kids no space is abuse. The way he speaks to you is coercive and abusive. 3. Your pastor is a disgrace. Religion is by men for men. He doesn't want you to separate or to hold your husband to account for his hoarding or his abuse. He wants you and the kids at service acting meek. He is not objective. Your relationship with God is your own. Fuck the mill too. It's dominance under a guise. This is not gentle and kind love. He is no expert. He is not in your marriage or the one being abused in your relationship. He gets zero say. His focus could have been on guiding your husband to seek help and counseling. He should move out and sell his toys to make amends. He should be in anger management and rehab for his addictions. Instead, he shifted to blame and control of you, the mother. It's the patriarchal way. If your husband kills you, which is statistically more likely now that he's attacked you sadly, will he shrug the same way and say, he lost control? Fuck that and fuck him. If God could heal, he should have healed your husband from his addiction and being a terrible person. Cult logic right there. Do as I say, not do as I do, or yes. Divorce would be easier than dealing with his hoarding and volatile moods. If you don't take action, he will harm your kids physically in time. Calling them your kids like he has no responsibility or love for them is literally disgusting. They're his children and you're his family. He has a responsibility to care for and about you all. You didn't magically get pregnant yourself. You're upset due to his spending addictions and hoarding and because he physically assaulted you. This is a normal and reasonable reaction to someone you love hurting you. You're acting like a victim because you are a victim of his abuse and mental illness. He's choosing his addiction and his hoarding over his family. You're dealing with 3 kids. Go to the doctor and get a report of the abuse ASAP. Take photos of the abuse when he can't get to them. Get a burner phone and a P.O. box. Set up a new email only you have the password to and document everything. Print the pics hard copy. Save the pics to the new cloud only you have access to. Take the kids' birth certs and other important documents and lock them in this P.O. box or a new vault in a new bank. Your husband should have no access and no knowledge of this under any circumstances. Change the password on your phone and set up 2-factor authentication. Take your Face ID off and your biometrics off your main phone. Have a PIN he doesn't know. Change all of your email and social media passwords. Make sure he has no access to the cloud for shared storage. Turn off family sharing on devices. Buy gift cards in the shops and hide them so you'll have cash for food and essentials, should he get nastier and empty the bank account in an effort to control you. Gather any jewelry that you could pawn in an emergency and keep it outside of the house. Plan now for a clean break to keep you and the kids safe. He will absolutely try and sabotage this severance. Do not underestimate a violent and desperate addict. That is who he is. Go to a lawyer and talk through all of your options ASAP. After the lawyer, you'll need to make a police report and possibly a protective order. Call your local women's aid for advice and support. Today for next steps. I hope he shits the bed selling all his toys to pay for maintenance and a new house when you separate. I hope he has a lumpy and hot pillow for the rest of his life. He is despicable and you deserve so much better in life. Mind yourself and mind your babies. This is not the happy, safe, and loving life you deserve. You can have all of these things when he's your ex-husband. Stay strong and make your moves in silence for now. Bonus points for making the horrible Emile an X2. No more family parties with that witch. Small mercies. Stories number 16. Am I the ahole for telling my husband to leave me alone while I was in the hospital? I want to make this as anonymous as possible because I know my brother occasionally uses this site, and I don't want him all in my business. So forgive the non-specifics, but I'll try my best. I am F early 20s. My husband is M early 30s. We've been married a year. We were not trying for a baby, but we do eventually want them. So about a month and a half ago, I started having some symptoms that I chalked up as a UTI, which I know sounds stupid now, but it was non-specific things like cramps and burning. I waited about 2 weeks before crippling pain woke me up in the middle of the night, and I decided I needed to drive myself to the ER. However, I couldn't even drive, it hurt so bad. My husband took me and turns out I was having an ectopic pregnant and it ruptured. It was a very shocking experience. I hadn't even known I was pregnant. I had a surgery and ended up with sepsis. I was very groggy and in a lot of pain for the following days. I was in the hospital for about 3.5 weeks. All of that to explain why I was even in the hospital. As I mentioned, it was so shocking. I was so upset about losing a baby I wasn't even trying for but would have loved so much. On top of just being in pain and hating being in the hospital. Never in my life have I struggled with or experienced anxiety. But I think I started having it while in the ICU. The doctors had prescribed me some medication that I could ask for, but my husband advised me not to. He's weirdly anti-medication for depression, anxiety, things like that, so I never did. However, one night I just had a particularly bad night and had so much anxiety and fear around everything. They had to remove one of my fallopian tubes, so I was just so upset that I might not ever have a baby again. And I lost one, and I was in pain and everything. My husband was at my side, but he wasn't being very comforting. And the nurse came in because she said my heart rate was really up. She suggested the anxiety medication, so I said yes. My husband didn't say anything until she gave it to me and left. But then he started to lecture me on how I don't need more medication, and I need to just work on calming my breathing and relaxing. We bickered for truly an hour before I eventually just snapped and told him to leave alone. He was so shocked and offended and left the hospital completely, and didn't come back until the next night and continued to be offended. He told me I should have never shut him out of that conversation, and I was so upset I just let him lecture me again. That was some weeks ago, and he's never brought it up again and seems to not care. But I'm still upset. Am I the ahole for doing that? Comments. Commenter 1. She's not a doctor and therefore gets no say in what medication you take. Women are often told to suck it up, way too much already. His lack of support is awful. His lack of support is a sign of how he will be going forward. Commenter 2. He needs to understand that he doesn't get to make medical decisions for you. He was bullying you while you were trying to recover. For me, this would be deal-breaker territory. Commenter 3. The fucking entitlement of that prick to tell you what you can and can't take. It's your fucking body. That man thinks he owns you. Commenter 4. NTA, and I'm a little concerned about your ages. Being in your early 20s with a 30-plus-year-old man is one thing. But he is clearly not there for you, during a hard time not being supportive or comforting. Plus, it's also concerning that you even thought to drive yourself to the ER instead of having him drive you, and is trying to prevent you from having medication for anxiety during a very traumatic time. Lecturing you while in your hospital bed and making things about him for multiple days is horrifying. This is not how you should be treated. And unfortunately, this is very common in age gap relationships like this. I'm 21, and I literally cannot imagine anything I'd have in common with a 30-year-old man. Please watch for red flags here. Especially when they may pertain to him controlling you and your decisions, especially medical decisions that have nothing to do with him. And when it comes to being there for you during hard times, imagine if you do get pregnant and he tries to stop you from taking necessary medications for any reason, but especially for anxiety, depression. And God forbid you suffer from postpartum depression, and he doesn't want you to take medications for that. Stories number 17. Vibe check, please. I'm considering breaking up with my boyfriend over groceries. My boyfriend and I are both in our mid-30s. I have been recently dating him for the last few months, but I am already considering breaking things off, even though things are generally positive. I just don't like how he is handling groceries. I feel ridiculous even saying this. We do not live together, but we hang out at my place a lot. We can't really hang out at his place, because it's a total disaster area, because he is one of those financial independence guys. He doesn't value having things like furniture, for example. So he just has heaps of clothes and other things on the floor. His kitchen is super disorganized, but minimal to the point that if I want to drink water, I need to wash a glass. He has like 4 plates. He also really doesn't have anywhere to sit. I really don't like staying there for that reason also. Am I a jerk for thinking that I would want to see him maintain his apartment before he could possibly move in with me? I get not wanting to spend unnecessary money, but I just feel so weird hanging out there next to piles of stuff. I know that's mostly my own preferences being different than his, but it is still weird, so he spends most of his time at my place. I cook almost all my own meals, which means that I've basically been cooking for him too. While he does help with the dishes, I still have to spend a ton of time cooking then. He will proceed to eat basically as much as he wants, even to the point of being uncomfortable, even if it takes me 9 hours to make the dish. This means that we won't have leftovers, so I have to cook again for meal prep. He says it's because my food is so good that he wants to eat it while it's still fresh, and that he had food scarcity growing up. I feel like all I'm doing now is cooking, when before I would just spend about 4 hours on a Sunday and have my meals one for the week. I don't particularly want him to cook for me because he said that before he dated me, he would primarily eat eggs, oatmeal, and chia pudding. I really don't want to be subjected to that because we don't live together. He thinks it's unfair for him to contribute to my groceries, even though he acknowledges he eats more than me, because the food is stored here and I won't give him access to my apartment when I'm not around, means that he shouldn't have to split the cost. I agree that it's not totally fair to split it 50-50. But 100 isn't fair either. I make plenty of money. But I feel like it's sort of ridiculous to have me foot the cost of the groceries, especially because we also split the cost of our dates. This weekend we went out to dinner and I paid for my meal. Earlier today, I asked him about contributing more towards groceries, and he said that he drives me around on the weekend, so he thinks this balances out. I think that's sort of ridiculous. He and I drive together because he's here on the weekend, and it makes absolutely no sense for us to drive separate. And also, the cost of gas on the weekends alone is far outpaced by my grocery bill. I've also let him drive my car around when his car's in the shop, when he takes food to go to work. I have to hound him to bring back my glass containers then. He will bring me the containers while they are still dirty. It's seriously the most stupid recurring fight I've ever had. I would be okay with him paying like 10 a day when he does eat here, but I would feel bad if it's a lazy day, where I just make noodles or something, and I don't want to feel like I'm nickel and dimming my boyfriend. In every other way, he's really thoughtful and overall, a good boyfriend. So I feel like a lunatic for wanting to break things off. Is there any other advice here? How can I communicate this better without me just nagging at him about how he needs to contribute? Edited for context. We both work similar jobs for similar hours and make similar amounts of money. Neither of us are in financial situations where paying for groceries is a concern for our budgets. Comments. Commenter 1. So what you're saying is this dude is building his financial independence on the back of you taking care of him, or at least getting a much more comfortable life than he would otherwise have while still being able to sock away most of his own money because you're footing the bill for the fun food. And on top of that, he doesn't even clean up, no. Helping with dishes doesn't count when you've done all the prep and cooking. Honey, he's a hobosexual disguised as a money-minded career man. You're doing exactly the same things you'd have to do with the sort of sad sack that lives in mommy's basement and works part-time gig work, which I doubt you would accept from that type of man, nor should you. But because he's saying it's to save more, you are trying to tell yourself it's okay, but it's not. He's still taking massive advantage of you. He's not actually thoughtful or a good boyfriend. He's just hiding the rest of the garbage personality until you're hooked, because he can't sell you on it as being financially smart. Because if he was actually thoughtful, he'd at least have a clean glass for when you visit or wash your leftover containers before returning them. If he was a good partner, he wouldn't want you to be unduly burdened both physically by devouring multiple portions of a meal it took 9 hours to make or financially by doing the same thing and not recompensing you. It's up to you if you stay with him or not, but if you do, you need to stop making elaborate meals while he's there and keep it to cheap and quick, even if that's still tastier than eggs and oatmeal, and not letting him take leftovers. Just know that he will likely try to guilt you or lash out and may well end the relationship if you don't give in. Commenter 2. Yeah. Not really a long-term prospect there. When he comes over, He can order and pay for takeout delivery. You buy your own groceries, and he can cover your meals when he's over. If he doesn't like that, he can pick up the ingredients on the way over, and you can cook. Or you can throw him back into the pond. Commenter 3. All of this is red flags. He has all this money, but lives like he can't have a place to sit and keep clean dishes for his girlfriend. His priorities are all wrong. He could get cheap furniture from Marketplace with very little money and effort and not affect his financial goals. He just doesn't want to. He could make the effort to keep things tidy and clean. He just doesn't. He could offer to help with gas and food costs. He just doesn't deserve a girlfriend. Commenter 4, not a lunatic. It doesn't sound like you're with someone who is truly a partner. Even if he is thoughtful, he's still taking more than he's giving. And that alone would be enough to make me want to end it. Edit. He's in his mid-30s and acting like this? Respectfully, dump his ass. You deserve better. Stories number 18. Am I the a-hole for saying I don't care about my sister's rejection-sensitive dysphoria, and will be having my wedding the way I want it? I know sometimes it might seem like the answer is obvious, but I am honestly asking for the truth because I am getting so much pressure from my family that it is becoming unbearable now. I am 30, am newly engaged, my fiancé F30, and I have been together for 2 years, and we both feel ready for the next step. We don't want a big wedding. We both come from huge families, and we don't want to deal with the costs and the headache of planning a huge event. Our plan is to go to City Hall and sign the required papers. We would invite my parents, my sister, my brother-in-law, my fiancé's father and sister, and 2 of my friends since they were the ones who set me and my fiancé up. After that, we would all go out for dinner. We don't want any other wedding stuff or any kind of reception. When my older sister got married 3 years ago, I ended up being thankful I was stationed in another country. I was in the RCAF at the time. She had a huge, expensive wedding, which is normal in our family, but watching it on a live stream was enough for me. I was getting a headache when I was hearing about the planning secondhand, my fiancé, and don't want that stress. I thought my family would have a problem with us not having big wedding or only inviting my parents, sister and brother-in-law. But my sister got upset because she wanted to be my fiancé's maid of honor. We aren't even having a maid of honor, best man, or wedding party at all, even if we were. My fiancé would want her own sister to be maid of honor, not my sister. My sister also thought she would get a special role in the wedding as sister of the groom, which isn't a thing as far as I know. I've never seen it at any wedding I've ever gone to. For full disclosure, my sister has ADHD, and with that she also has something called rejection-sensitive dysphoria. She takes rejection really personally, and even though my parents sent her to therapy before, she still takes it hard when she thinks someone has rejected her, even if they haven't really done that. I told her my fiancé and I aren't having wedding parties or a wedding where other people have a special role. She feels rejected, and now my parents, my brother-in-law, and other people in my family are pressuring me to change my mind. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister and everyone else that I don't care if she feels rejected and won't change a thing about the wedding? It gets annoying to have everything revolve around my sister's feelings all the damn time. I don't think it's wrong for me and my fiancé to want our wedding day to be about us. Instead of giving my sister the role of maid of honor groom's sister and letting her be the center of attention like she wants, my parents and my brother-in-law are the worst offenders, and I ended up telling them and everyone else who pressured me that I'm done talking about this and to never bring it up again. Am I the a-hole for this? I just want to have my wedding the way my fiancé and I want it, but my family has never gotten so upset at me about anything else before, so I wonder if I overstepped. Edited to add, to whoever is sending me Reddit cares messages. I am fine and don't need that. Comments. Commenter 1 NTA. And I would tell your parents, sister and Bill, that if they mention it again, then none of them will be attending the small occasion you have planned. You'll just elope and have some random witnesses. That should shut them up. Commenter 2 Jesus. RSD is something you have to work on. Not something that means everyone has to give in to you to prove that they really care about you. I have ADHD. I sometimes get RSD. It sucks. It's hard. It also doesn't mean I get to demand to get my way all the time. NTA. You need to be firm with your sister. It seems like no one else is willing to. Commenter 3 NT. Rejection-sensitive dysphoria doesn't mean your sister get to be the center of attention all the time. Commenter 4. But my sister got upset because she wanted to be my fiancé's maid of honor. That's one of the most presumptuous things I've ever read. For full disclosure, my sister has ADHD, and with that she also has something called rejection-sensitive dysphoria. She takes rejection really personally, And even though my parents sent her to therapy before, she still takes it hard when she thinks someone has rejected her. Even if they haven't really done that. You're not responsible for babying your sister and her emotions all her life. A lot of us feel hurt by things, and we're expected to live with it. Because that's what life is. Nobody is going out of their way to hurt her, and she needs to stop trying to make problems for you. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister and everyone else that I don't care if she feels rejected and won't change a thing about the wedding? Not even a little bit. Your family are enablers. Instead of giving my sister the role of maid of honor, groom's sister, and letting her be the center of attention like she wants, and that's the heart of the matter. She wants to be the center of attention. I've never heard of this condition before, but I have ADHD along with a bunch of other stuff. And I can almost guarantee I've got this. I try very hard to never give anyone the chance to reject me. I don't use it to guilt trip people I ostensibly love. Stories number 19. Suggest to your BIL and parents that it might be a good time to send your sister back to therapy. Tell your sister and parents that the wedding will happen precisely as planned. You hope that she and her husband will be there to share your special day, but understand if her mental health issue keep her away, and that you love and support her regardless of her choice. Tell you parents that they are actually encouraging her mental illness, and that they allowed her to have the wedding she wanted, and that you will have the wedding you and your fine as he want, and you absolutely won't. Entertain any discussion about changes. If they don't let it drop, then employ, say no, then go. Reiterate that this issue has been decided, and you won't discuss it further. Then disengage. If it's text, just don't respond. Phone call, say goodbye and hang up. In person, walk away. Stories number 20. I wish my boyfriend's girl best friend would just disappear. I 20F met Theo 19M about a year ago, and we started dating 6 months ago. And honestly, he's a lovely guy. He's thoughtful, kind, and pretty attractive. And most nights I feel like I'm punching well above my weight. My only problem is his girl best friend Lily. They've known each other since they were 15, and they've been best friends since, from what I've heard. By best friends, I mean they talk almost every day, and she's the person he looks towards for advice. I'm so jealous of her I cannot start. She studies medicine at Oxford, a university I could never get into. She gets along amazingly with his parents, and I hate to say it, but she's quite pretty. I constantly find myself comparing myself to her, and I feel inadequate. The worst thing is I have no reason to feel this way. She's probably one of the politest people out there, and she has never once made me feel left out or unwelcome. She's been nothing but lovely to me, and it drives me nuts. I almost wish she was a bitch. Before we started dating, Theo told me that when they were 18, the two took a trip to Croatia, where they hooked up, but they didn't sleep together. He told me that nothing came of it, and they both think of it as a drunken mistake, and never spoke of it again. I can't stop thinking about why he would be with me when he can have a girl like her. I just can't stop comparing myself. I want to tell him to cut her off so badly, but I don't want to be the reason he loses a 4-year-long friendship. I'm slowly losing my mind. Commenter 1. The issue isn't the best friend, I know this, because my partner had a girl best friend when we started dating 13 years ago. Always felt weird around her, jealousy, wanted her to disappear. Guess what? She did. She moved to another state. We didn't see her for 5 years. I thought I was living the dream, until he got a new work colleague where I felt the exact same way. Guess what? That one moved away too, lol, and now she just gets replaced. Or let's just say, I project my own insecurities onto every woman I sense he has a true connection with. Try to find what she is triggering in you and work on that. I guarantee you, her disappearance will not solve your problems. Commenter 2. If they're never given you a reason to worry, then of course don't ask that. But maybe have a talk with your BF about how you feel, just to get some closure so he knows. But from this, it does sound like it's something you'll have to work through emotionally, especially since you seem to think you're not good enough for your boyfriend. That's such bad thinking for yourself. Focusing on your self-esteem and loving yourself more, I think, will help you in the long run. Commenter 3. It's not that he's with you when he could have her. It's that they crossed the boundary, didn't like it, and stepped back behind the line. He doesn't want her, even if the hookup was him shooting his shot. She shot it down. She likes you. She likes her best friend and his family. He likes you. He's choosing to be with you. Unless you don't trust his feelings for you and think he'd rather be with her if she wanted him, there's no reason to be jealous. But don't start with someone if you can't trust them because of your own insecurities. Commenter 4. I mean, listen, they have been friends longer than your relationship, and neither of them has given you a reason for this insecurity. Maybe the hookup has made you feel a way, as is natural, But the fact that he was upfront and honest with you is a green flag. Most wouldn't disclose that info, and then you'd find out in an uncomfortable way. I truly think that by asking him this is not only selfish, but would ruin your relationship. It feels controlling and it leaves a bad taste. Maybe at most speak to him about how you feel and your insecurities and go from there. Stories number 21. My husband's strange encounter. At 1:52 a.m. my phone rings. It's my husband. He already texted me letting me know he was on his way home from work. Worried that something was wrong, I answer me, "Hey babe, you okay?" Him silence me, "Babe." Him, "Can you hear me?" Me, "I can now, are you okay?" Him, "I don't know what just happened. I'm almost home, but I saw something. I'm about to lose service. Be waiting on me, please." I get out of bed and stand at the front door, waiting to see his headlights come down our long driveway. He gets in the door with a shocked look on his face. This is what he said. "I saw these things, these tall white things. A tall white woman with two other tall white people, and not white like the skin color, snow white. They were standing out by the abandoned train tracks on X Road. The woman had what my brain could only compare to a trash bag with a light. I know that's not what it was, but that's what it reminded me of. When I saw them, they noticed me too. And I got this feeling, I can't explain it, but I just needed to get out of there. An unease came over me. I'm not sure what they were, but it wasn't right. They're not humans." I started reheating his dinner, and then it hit me. This automatically made me think of the tall whites. I Googled tall whites, and asked my husband if any of the photos were comparable. He scrolled to one image and said, "Yes, this is close." The next morning, we decided to go back to where he saw them, and there was a black mark on the ground, like something scorched the earth. Even more puzzling was that it had lightly rained the night before. It was raining when he saw them. Nobody lives in the area where he saw them. It's just an old, one-lane road that connects two larger roads and crosses the abandoned railroad tracks. We also live in the outskirts of a very tiny little town. It's unlikely that anyone was this far out, making a fire directly next to the road and tracks. As we're walking towards the car, a old man, in a beat-up, old Ford pulls up beside us. He says, "Hey, what y'all up to?" Neither of us recognized him. We just nodded and said, "We were looking at something. Is our car in your way?" He puts the truck in park and gets out. He says, "No, y'all are fine. Did you kids see something interesting?" My husband said, I saw something out here the other night on my way home from work. Not sure what it was, though." The old man says, "Is that right? I live over that way, have all my life," as he points to the highway. An awkward silence falls over us for a few seconds as we're walking to the car. Then he says, "Y'all believe in aliens?" My husband and I both look at each other. I say yes, actually we do. He goes on to tell us that he and his late wife experienced a lot of strange occurrences out there. Over the years, he said, the scorch mark was from them, and asked if we'd ever seen anything in the sky. That was unidentifiable. My husband showed him a video that was taken a couple months back of a UFO. Over our house, he invited us over to his house, saying that he had some images he'd like to show us. It may not have been the best decision, but we agreed. My husband has his carry permit, so I wasn't too worried. We followed him to an old farmhouse. He said his grandparents built the house in the 1800s, and all of them have seen and experienced things on around the property. He goes to a little garage shack and retrieves some old Polaroid pictures. All 5 photos pictured your classic flying saucer. "My father took these," he said. "There's more in the house. Somewhere." He goes on to tell us that he's not exactly sure where they come from or why they're here, but he knows there's different species and different kind of craft. I'd like to think we gained a friend, but I'm still not 100% sure what my husband encountered. I thought I'd share the story here. Commenter 1. I had a similar experience when I was 16, and I still debate myself over what happened. It's a few of many paranormal things that have happened to me and have created a stir in me. I was coming home from my closing shift at Chuck E. Cheese's. It was a weeknight, and in the summertime, we would close at 11 p.m. and get out around 12 a.m. after completing all closing duties. That night, we had an associate moving up to manager and closing for his first time. Coincidentally, we also received a truck, which he was going to have to do on his own since most of the crew had gone home and he really couldn't keep me and other crew members there since we were still underaged. Nevertheless, he asked 3 of us if we could stay and help him, and he's pay us each $50. Of course, we all said yes. We ended up leaving the store around 2:30 a.m. and the streets were lonely. Maybe a couple cars every few minutes would pass by on the highway. It was one of those summer nights where it had been 100 degrees all day, and late that night, a storm came in. By the time we got out, it was only sprinkling, and you could see a light fog rising up from the concrete. I had about a 15-minute drive home, but that day I guess feeling adventurous and with the fog rising from the concrete, it warranted me taking the longer way home. I took a way home that took me through a street behind the apartments where my aunt lived at the time. I had never taken that street before. To get to her apartments, I would always take another route. I get off the highway and turn onto this street and notice that there's no fog coming up from the concrete, and suddenly a feeling of dread and almost panic came over me, which made me want to get home quicker. As I passed my aunt's apartments, I looked over as I always do when I pass a relative or a friend's house. I look over, and on the sidewalk I see a tall man wearing a hoodie. Mind you, it is about 90 degrees out at this time. Now when I say tall, this man was easily 7'F tall, which is something you don't see every day. Curiously, I slow down and look at the man coming closer and closer to me. As he gets about 20 feet from my truck, I notice he's very pale, almost so white there was a glow emanating from his skin. Then I notice his face under the hood and see that he has no facial features, almost like the Silver Surfer. As he approaches the corner, I come to almost a complete stop, completely in shock of what I had just seen. He casually turns the corner and starts walking to the highway, and in my rearview mirror, I notice that his stride is very short, but he's traveling at an abnormal rate of speed for someone walking. Then I also notice his arms. They were abnormally long, and I could see them swinging back and forth in stride with him walking. But the thing that left the biggest impression on me is how his arms were hanging below his knees as he walked. This detail made me want to have a second look, so I turn into the next street, do a U-turn and come back out onto the street. I come back out onto the street, and suddenly the mist is there coming out from the concrete. And this man is gone. I drive out onto the service road and then the highway, and he's gone. Now at the time, there was nothing but empty fields in the area, and he would have stuck out like a sore thumb in those fields. I even turned around and put the window down to make sure he wasn't in those fields. But when I passed back by the area I had last seen him, I noticed the smell of something burnt, almost like the smell of burnt clutch or the smell of a power tool that's about to give out. I went home and told no one about it. The next morning my mind is still going crazy about this man or thing I saw. I get in my truck and head to the spot. I was not surprised to see almost nothing, but there were two things very out of place that perplexed me even more. That smell was still in the air. It penetrated the air, and in that area I couldn't smell anything but that. Not even my car fresheners that just a block away were so potent I could smell them outside of my truck. Then I head over to the service road to get onto the highway to just head home. Then I notice that the field closest to highway is basically gone. All of the grass I had seen a night before is gone, and they're nothing but dirt and small scattered mounds of gravel and sand. That really threw a bigger hex into all of this because this field is the one I looked at closely the night before. Even to the point I turned on my fog lights and the high beams, and it was nothing but a grassy field. Now this area has been converted into a small shopping center, but still a small part of the field remains, and to this day there is still a few mounds of gravel and sand on the field, as if someone began a project there that never made it out of the very early stages. Still to this day I have never been on this road again. Even if it takes me an extra 5 or 10 minutes to avoid this road, I will. Reply I read this to my husband. He said the beings he saw were also so white, they nearly glowed, and they were also abnormally tall. Thank you for sharing. He had some hesitation about me sharing this, but I told him I'm sure others will come forward with their stories. Commenter 2, I think he's glad he found someone he could tell who would actually believe him. That thought is probably as comforting for him as it is for you. Nobody else will ever believe you. Well, except some of us here. Reply, thank you. We've been together for a long time. We trust each other 100% and have experienced other weird things together. So he knows I'm going to listen. I've seen a lot of comments here that don't believe me, and that's fine. I encourage people to be skeptical and question things, but I'm not trying to deceive anyone. Commenter 3, where is this? Last year, I went to a beach in northern CA, and as I looked across towards some dunes, I saw a very bright light in the form of a tall person. The light was really bright like the sun, and I was shocked starting at it. As I turned to let other person know what I'm seeing, it was gone. This was during the day around noontime. Very strange. Commenter 4, I believe her. She can't help it if she writes well. So just because something reads well, it isn't true. Or if it really happened, it'd be sloppy chicken scratch on a napkin or something? Not everyone conveys their experiences the same way, reply. This is absolutely true. My grandmother was a teacher for 40 years, and a grammar snob. I'm nowhere as punctual as she'd like me to be, but I spent many nights sitting at the kitchen table, rewriting things, because of her. I assume that's why I write the way I do. Stories number 22. Am I the a-hole for calling my sister a dumb bee after she chastised my SEL for how she gave birth? I was at my mom's house for dinner, and me, my older siblings, and my SIL were in the living room talking while my mom got dinner ready. My relationship with my siblings is pretty bad, due to some background familial issues and the fact that we just don't have personalities that mesh, but we're able to stay mostly civil for my mother. My sister is one of those hyper-religious people that doesn't believe in Western medicine and wants everything natural. My sister-in-law recently got out of the hospital after being there for an extensive period of time following a really messy labor. From what I know, she went into labor prematurely and had to get an emergency C-section as her and the baby's lives were at risk. It was a tough period of time for her and my brother. We were talking about how they have been progressing since they got out, and Sil shared how hard it's been having to bounce back from that traumatic experience to take care of her son. My sister turned to my brother and said, "Had to take the easier route and she still complains," and laughed. My Sil asked what she meant. My sister proceeded to go on a tirade about how she kept trying to help her throughout her pregnancy, and she didn't listen, and that's why things turned out the way they did, and that she took the shortcut and has the audacity to complain. My SIL tried to explain that the doctors told her what would be best for her during her pregnancy, because of issues she was already having, and that her delivery was the best course of action. My sister would not let up, and was gradually getting more insulting, ignoring me telling her to knock it off. My SIL ended up crying, and I was pissed. I turned to my SEL and said, "So are you gonna take the advice of trained medical professionals, or one dumb bitch who couldn't get through high school?" My sister lost her mind and started yelling at me, to which I just repeated "get a job" over and over again, which made her angrier till she was crying and hurling insults at me. My brother and SIL ended up leaving, and my mom came and intervened, telling my sister to calm down and me to leave. Since then, I had a heated phone call with my brother because he believes that I should have just kept my mouth shut and let women handle their business. My parents are divorced, left me multiple texts grilling me and calling me a disgrace and whatnot, because my sister went crying to him. And my mom texted me saying that she thinks my sister was a bit harsh, but that I was way out of line and I need to apologize to her. My SEL texted me and said that she's sorry she caused this situation and that she appreciates me speaking up, but I didn't have to, and that's what's making me feel awful. I'm in a bad state with my family. I always have been, and I'm fine with that. But I don't want to put her in a bad position with them too when she's done nothing wrong. Am I the a-hole for insulting my sister after she insulted my SIL? Edit, posted a recent very peaceful text conversation with my brother, relevant comments. Commenter 1, so your brother, who should have stood up for his wife, is mad at you for doing so. He has now pressured his own wife into telling you shouldn't have done so? Does this mean he also believes the same thing your sister does? I'm just glad your SIL saw at least one person stand up for her in that debacle. Unfortunately, she has a husband problem, and you have a family problem. I would just ignore the rest of your family and make sure your SIL knows she deserves someone standing up for her, and didn't do anything wrong. She didn't cause your sister to be an asshole. Seems she was born that way, considering how the rest of your family are. NTA reply. My brother's always been really non-confrontational and a keep-the-peace type of guy, so I wasn't surprised that he didn't say anything. Just that he didn't even try to take my SIL and leave. I'm also not surprised by him being mad at me because on the flip, I am overly confrontational, which he has always hated. Commenter 2, definitely Enthia. Someone needed to put her in her place. Seems like your family is too comfortable doling out abuse and not being called out on it. I'd go LC with them all for my peace of mind reply. I'm already LC. My only connection to them is through my mom, who I have a decent relationship with. I think the text my dad sent is the first bit of contact we've had in like a year. Commenter 3 NTA, your bro is TA though for not standing up for his wife. Wouldn't be surprised if there was a divorce in the near future. Your whole fam is a mess. Why are they backing her up so much? Reply, well, my dad just pretty blatantly doesn't like me, so that's probably why. My mom just doesn't like problems in the family, and I'm pretty sure she wants me to apologize, so my sister will shut up. My sister lives with her. My brother is the one I don't understand. He's always been non-confrontational, but in this case his wife was being insulted. I'd think he'd at least remove her from the situation, but, I mean, he also doesn't like me, so that might be why he got mad. OP follows up with a post one day later on his account, screenshotting a conversation between him and his brother. I transcribed the messages here. Sorry for any typos, brother. OP's sister's name has been trying to help us throughout our entire pregnancy and has been there for us when you were nowhere to be seen, so don't act like you're some good guy. She stuck by us even when Esiel's name was being horrible to her. Which, by the way, she apologized for something you're probably not familiar with. We all know how sister's name is, including Esiel's name. She was just emotional that night and so it got to her, but she could handle it. She's a grown woman. Instead of just letting them have their conversation, you have to butt in so you can antagonize sister's name like you always do. You just can't stand that she actually helps the family, unlike you who just bring us down. Reply, antagonize sister's name. Give me a fucking break. That fucking clown flies off the handle every chance she gets when someone disagrees with her. You let a woman who thinks pouring coffee up your ass will detox your body dictate your wife's pregnancy. When your wife literally tells you she doesn't like that, does that not worry you? Like, do you agree with her, or are you too much of a fucking pansy to tell her to fuck off? What kind of chicken's hit husband lets his sister bully his own wife? Also funny how you're complaining about me not being around to help y'all, when you word for word said to me, I don't want your disgusting gay shit infecting my kid. Hell, I thought I was just honoring your wishes, brother. You're acting like sister's name is a nutcase when she just has differing viewpoints from you. You're such a fucking child, you can't stand that people think differently from you. You've become a psycho-lib and want to push that onto everyone else. Reply. Pointing out factual medical science as being a psycho-lib. Holy shit, you're going to get that kid killed. Your wife has enough sense to try to keep herself and your son, who you should be protecting, safe with what doctors recommend, instead of listening to psychobabble about letting toxins into her body. Brother, this is all you do is try to tear down the family instead of helping us because you want to act like you're better than us. Poor little baby, someone was mean to him once, so now he has to ruin everything for the rest of us. If mom wasn't trying so hard to keep you around, no one would want anything to do with you. We can talk when you apologize to sister's name and Sil's name for getting into their business and being an asshole, trying to make me seem like I don't take care of my wife when you sit there and make your sister cry fuck off. Reply, trust. If mom wasn't trying so hard to keep us all together, I'd love to be done with the rest of you. That's all you know how to do is be dad or sister's name, little fucking purse dog, and do what they say. Only thing is you rope this poor lady and kid to suffer 'cause you can't think for yourself. Hope she wises up before you fuck up that kid. So sensitive to that woman child throwing a tantrum but not to your wife being chastised. Ridiculous. Update 1. My brother has convinced my mom that I, an openly gay man, I'm trying to steal his wife. What do I do? Looking for any kind of advice on what I can do. Or if I should just completely cut my losses with my shits how of a family. My brother 32 has successfully convinced my family that I 24 am in love with my SIL 24F. And am trying to manipulate her against him so I can steal her away. My brother and Siel have been married for 4 years. This apparently all came about because a couple months ago, her and my sister 34F had a big blow-up about my Siel's pregnancy, and I defended my Siel against my sister's big tirade. Following that night, I received a lot of scrutiny from family, particularly my brother for interfering in woman's business. And I said some not-so-nice things to him. My Siel also reached out to me and apologized to me for causing the situation, and I let her know she had nothing to apologize for, and that I'm here to help both her and my nephew. We ended up having a pretty in-depth conversation about how my sister has treated her in the past. Apparently, my sister moved in with her and my brother for a brief period to help with my Siel's first pregnancy, and was really overbearing, and constantly ridiculing her choices for the sake of the baby. My Siel unfortunately suffered from what sounded like an ectopic pregnancy, and had to have an emergency surgery to have the fetus removed. My sister and my brother apparently think that's the same thing as aborting a baby, and she was blamed for the loss of the child, and from how she spoke she also saw this as a failure on her part. It pissed me off, and I did my best to explain to her the medical reasonings of why what happened was necessary and not her fault, and that my brother and sister are just kind of stupid. She shouldn't feel bad for doing something necessary to save her life, especially because the fetus wasn't even viable. That was the last time she spoke, and I just let her know I'd be there if she needed anything. I guess either she told my brother or he found out from her messages about the conversation and took it as me flirting with his wife. I'll give him the fact that I did call him stupid in the messages, but Timon, thinking an emergency procedure for a life-threatening situation was your wife willfully terminating her pregnancy and making her feel bad about it is fucking stupid. Sorry. He told the rest of my family about how I'm envious and trying to take his wife, which they all believed, and are now mad at me. This wouldn't be a big deal to me if my mom 53F wasn't also included in that. My mom is the only one in my family I have good relationship with. But apparently, she believes my brother, and has called me to scold me about betraying my brother and being shameless, along with my other family members. This is all frustrating, but here's the absolute best part about this. The reason I'm estranged from my family is because I'm gay. It is like the thing that fucked our family up. I've very openly been seeing another man for the past 3 years. My brother has also been open about not wanting me around his family because of my unnatural lifestyle. All that just to easily believe I'm in love with a woman? I guess the reason I come here is so that I can understand how this would be believable. I understand my dad and my sister believing this easily. They hate me and probably just want a reason to feel justified in rallying against me. But I can't really comprehend my mother believing it. But maybe I gave her too much credit. At the end of the day, I am very much the outlier of my family on all fronts. I also wonder if maybe my Sael took what I was saying as me taking an interest in her. Maybe I made her uncomfortable, but the most I did was just explain medical things to her so she wouldn't feel bad about her first pregnancy. I don't know, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I've always been at peace with not having my family, especially because my family is full of nutjobs. But I think potentially having to accept my mom is also that way, is making me second-guess myself. I also don't like the idea that I made my Sael uncomfortable. Sorry for the long post, but has anyone been in a situation similar to this? Is my relationship with my mom salvageable, and can I get her to see that my brother is a mental case? TLDR. Brother convinced my family I'm in love with his wife because I tried to support her after a blow-up with my sister. Everyone believed him, including my mom, even though I'm gay. IDK what to do. Comments.commenter 1. There's no way a 28-year-old man married a 20-year-old woman without abuse involved. Steal his girl and his kids, non-sexually. 'Cause they need your help, reply. I don't know when they met, but I'm inclined to agree. The area I grew up in is very evangelical, fundamentalist, Christian-heavy, and unfortunately, it's common to see age gaps like that. My mom and dad have a 12-year gap. My family are hardcore evangelicals, and to my understanding, my sister-in-law is also hyper-religious. Latest update, me, mom, brother, and potentially ex-Sael update. Very long post, sorry. Don't know if anybody is following me, but when I came back to this account, I seen a significant number of messages asking me how I'm doing. If everything's all right, what happened to my siblings, what happened to my Sael, etc. I just want to say thank you to everyone being concerned for me. It's real nice, but I promise, no matter how the situation turned out, while not ideal, I was going to be fine, as I've had about a decade to get used to being ostracized from them, and about 5 years building a new, much healthier, less insane life with a new family made of friends and my SO. I'm not completely alone like I was all those years ago, thankfully. I've had a lot of people guess about me and my family's background, and without getting too specific, I'll just let you know I grew up in a very small fundamentalist Christian town in western Tennessee. My family is full of devout, ye old ways, evangelical Christian nationalists, so it's not a surprise that they're not too psyched that I ended up a gay progressive atheist who studies medicine. I was never going to be able to fit back in with them once I came out and deconstructed from Christianity, and I think my clinging to my relationship with my mom was just wishful thinking, because I thought she wasn't ass-awful as the rest of them. Let's get on to the real meat and potatoes, though. Things were honestly really quiet after the whole OP, the fag, is actually super in love with my wife and trying to steal her from me shtick my brother was pulling happened because I kinda just gave up on trying with any of them because, frankly, them believing that made me realize there is quite literally nothing I can do. Cut my losses, blocked them, kept on trucking with my life. Last week, though, as I was leaving class, who do I see waiting for me but my mother, just for reference? I live about an hour and a half away from the rest of the family. At first, I just kept on walking because I really didn't want to deal with that shit, but she stopped me and asked if we could talk. She didn't really look mad or anything, she just looked really worn out and sad. While I honestly wasn't feeling particularly sympathetic, I was curious, so I agreed. She asked if we could go back to my apartment. I said hell no and took her to the park to sit. She tried to open with small talk, but I just told her to get on with it, so apparently she came to let me know that my Sael and nephew have gone missing. My brother is distraught over it, and they think I had something to do with it. Now mind you, the last time I spoke to her was the night we had the conversation about her ectopic pregnancy. She didn't reach out ever again after that and randomly blocked me. Naturally, I'm ready to get up and leave because holy shit, you people cannot be fucking serious. But my mom is pleading to me that if I know where she is, I have to let her know, because they're worried about my brother, not her. My brother. You might be wondering why I put gone missing in quotations. Well, that's because of what my mother described as the lead-up to her disappearance. Apparently my Sael's older brother came to visit her and my brother without warning. My Sael actually hadn't had contact with him per my brother's request because the last time they saw each other was when my Sael and brother got engaged roughly 4 years ago. They ended up in an altercation, and the dude beat the absolute dog shit out of my brother. I did know about this as my mom was in shambles for an entire week about it, and the entire family was mad at Sael for letting it happen, common theme here. Point is, this dude fucking hates my brother and vice versa, so he wasn't happy about it, but they kept it civil. On the third day of his visit, my brother came back from work to an empty house. CL, her brother and the baby were nowhere to be found. CL's brother's car was gone. My brother didn't think anything of it at first. All of Sael's belongings were still there, including her phone, so he just assumed they went out to lunch or whatever. But after a couple hours there was still no sign of them. Another thing important to note, the guy apparently didn't bring anything with him when he came to stay with them. Just him and his car. My brother ended up calling the police and filing a missing persons report the next day. And that's where they are right now. Though from what my mom is telling me, the police are being weirdly lax about it. Hearing all of that, I feel like it's pretty natural to assume that she flew the coop, kid in hand, with the assistance of her brother. My mom, however, is adamant that something happened to her, or that she's being influenced and is in danger, and no matter how hard I tried to make her see the clues that Sael probably left on her own accord, she just wouldn't accept it. She was crying about how my brother is so humiliated and crushed about it, and that I have some responsibility over my Sael's disappearance and my brother's current state. At this point, this woman has devolved into borderline scream crying about how I ruined my family's life and reputation, while I sit there nodding along and going, uh-huh, oh, yeah, Honestly, the pathetic sight of my mother babbling about how I'm to blame for my family's shortcomings actually helped me get rid of the last bit of affection I had towards her. So silver lining, I guess, the little psychotic break my mother was having was, call me insensitive, going on for far too long, and I really had more important things to do. I said, okay, well, good luck with that, gave her a hearty pat on the shoulder, and walked back to campus while she sat there crying. I know. Not the nicest thing to do, but there is literally nothing else I can do for these people, and honestly, I kinda just don't even really have the capacity to feel bad for her anymore. It just kinda is what it is. My mom hasn't come back to my campus since then, and none of them know where I live, so it's whatever. However, I started getting a bunch of messages from a random number over the weekend following the interaction with my mother. This number I very easily recognized was our original foe, my lunatic sister, angrier and just as unemployed as ever. She basically parroted the same sentiment my mother gave, but in a much harsher and unfortunately, funnier way. Calling me a big pharma, retarded AIDS-ridden faggot who destroyed the family did in fact give me a little giggle, I won't lie. Very godly, very loving thy neighbor of her. I muted it, but I didn't block it, 'cause the angry ramblings of a mentally deranged woman in her mid-30s can be pretty entertaining. Anyways, maybe the cops will eventually ask me questions about my Sael, but I got just about as much of a clue as the rest of them. Wherever she is, I hope both she and my nephew are safe. Glad someone was able to get her the hell out of this nightmare of a family, and maybe it'll be a better beginning for her. I have no idea how that'll work with custody arrangements, though. Again, sorry for the long post. This account has basically become a lame diary, lol. SO to anyone who actually sees this, and thanks for all the well wishes. I'm gonna eat a funny gummy and try to act like this shit never happened. Stories number 23. My 36M wife 31F blames me that she has to work and not be a sahem. My wife has always wanted to be a mom, and that came true March 2023, and we have a wonderful son. She has a good corporate job, but made it clear early in our relationship that she wasn't a lifelong career person and wanted to stop working to take care of our family one day. I was okay with this, as I think it's great for a parent to be present, and I knew she'd be a great mom. But the understanding when we bought our home in 2022 and had our son was that she'd have to work for a few years until I was able to move up the ladder and make enough to support us. I do very well. But the area we live in is expensive, so I knew it would take time. Now, my son is 18 months old, and pretty much since she went back to work after leave, she's made it clear that she doesn't want to work. She cries frequently, most recently in the parking lot of her office before going in. I'm constantly getting walls of texts saying how unhappy she is and how it's affecting our marriage and that it's somehow my fault. It's not that I lack empathy, because I do feel bad that she's feeling this way, and I hate to see her like this. But when she gets angry or anxious about the situation, she lashes out at me and basically says I've failed and that I can't provide for her. At this point, the conversation is daily, and I don't know how to respond anymore. Outside of me making more money, there really is no solution. I've been actively searching for a better job for almost a year now, but nothing has panned out. How do I go about showing that I understand how she's feeling? How can we move forward in a healthy way without constantly being angry? Stories number 24. My 51 nephew M12 caught stage fright that prevented him from playing piano in church, but received permission to try again from the youth pastor. His dad won't allow him to play, though. I'm writing this regarding a situation that happened at church surrounding my 12-year-old nephew, and a situation he told me about over the phone. Every few months, his church has something called a Youth Sunday, where the youth pastor gives the sermon to the adults, and the youth band do the worship to give the regular worship team a break. The youth also do the church announcements and pass tithe baskets, and someone usually sings a song as the baskets are passed. That person was going to be my nephew on 6/15 who was going to play a worship song on piano, and this would also be his first time playing an adult service. He is not a part of the youth band, but he's taken piano lessons for a few years. He's played in recitals, but never for as many people as their church, who has 2 services with over 1,000 capacity. But when was about to play, he got nervous and started crying on the piano bench. One of the youth leaders went over to try and comfort him, but he couldn't muster the energy to try after crying, feeling embarrassed. The church was supportive and even gave him a standing ovation as the leader led him off stage. And my 12-year-old nephew called me last week to vent about the aftermath. During the week, he was angry and motivated to try again when the next Youth Sunday happened, and he even gained permission from the youth pastor to play the same song next time too. But the reason he called was because his dad said no after he relayed what the youth pastor said. And it's caused arguments between his parents because his mother thinks he should play. He said he and his mother were trying to convince him, but that he wasn't budging. And while I'm not a Christian anymore, I was raised religious. I can see the potential of an unspoken testimony when a kid overcomes his fears while potentially inspiring others. And I couldn't understand why my brother wouldn't support it. I decided to call him to understand his reasoning, and he explained he said no, because it wouldn't be about God anymore. He said that his redemption should be somewhere else, like a recital that's not connected to the church. But when I tried to explain how he should be proud of his kid's motivation, he reiterated that church wasn't the place. But when I argued that the point of church was literally redemption, I also told him that others could be inspired by his son's perseverance. But he said I didn't understand, and that it was none of my business. I also told him how crazy it was that I had to try and convince him to support his son. But he wouldn't budge. I agree it's none of my business. But I can't understand not wanting to support your son over some self-imposed nonsense when the youth pastor supports it too. I spoke with my nephew again following that conversation, and he told me that his dad said he would inform the youth pastor about his decision too. While I don't think there's much more I can do, would anyone involved in churches have any other suggestions? Because my nephew was really disappointed, and he really wants to try again. First update. The general consensus I received on my last post was something I originally thought of but didn't heed in the moment. I was emotional when my nephew called. He reached out to me because he couldn't get through to his parents, and I felt obliged to at least call my brother. But when people said that I was wrong to do so because it was none of my business, I was reminded of how I pushed past that thought to overstep due to my emotions. For that reason, I decided to call my brother back to apologize for telling him how to handle his family. He didn't ask for my opinion, and that was wrong of me. But when we spoke again, his tune changed from the first time when he opened up to me a little more. After I apologized for trying to insert myself into his business, he said he appreciated it, and that he thought about our conversation and wanted to clarify a few things. He said he understood my urge to call him in hindsight. His son called me about a situation that wasn't my business. So in doing so, he said he made it my business, and for that reason, he wanted to clarify. He said he spoke to his son about talking to others when mom and dad say no. something he said all parents consider disrespectful. Going to someone else after a parent makes a decision like asking mom for ice cream after dad said no. He also explained why he planned to say no to the youth pastor's offer to have him try again because he needed to learn that you won't always get a second chance in life. But when I suggested that church could be the perfect place for a second chance, I tried to explain how church was supposed to be a family, and families want each other to succeed. The Bible literally states to build each other up in Christ, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, and what better place to allow God to use his son's perseverance as a testimony to inspire others. Years ago, there was a Christian movie from the VeggieTales series about Jonah and how God gives second chances, and I told him that that was all his son was asking for. But he reiterated how church wasn't the place because church is supposed to be about God. But when I asked why the youth pastor gave him permission if it wasn't in God's will, he said the standing ovation his son received out of support made him upset, something he didn't say during our first call. When I asked why, he said his son didn't deserve the standing ovation because he didn't play, and he compared it to a participation trophy. He also said it was embarrassing because a few people came over after church service to encourage his son and tell him to try again next time. I tried to reason that they gave him the standing ovation because they wanted to encourage a young person in the congregation, but he said he wouldn't learn if there weren't consequences. And being told a few days later at youth group that he could try again wasn't how life usually works, so he said he was going to talk to the youth pastor. And that was pretty much it. I told him that I respectfully disagreed with his position, but that I wouldn't call him about it again because it was none of my business technically. What I did suggest was getting another opinion from someone in the church before talking to the youth pastor. But he said that there was no need. He thanked me for calling him, and that was pretty much it. As much of a missed opportunity it seems. There's really nothing I can nor should do. I hope other opportunities present itself for my nephew. And I found it interesting how I'm tried to use Christian jargon to convince my brother despite walking away years ago. The other reason I felt compelled about it was because of a coworker who has a son he often vents about. The son graduated high school with honors, and he attended community college with plans to transfer to a university afterward. He was also on the honor program in college too, but has dropped out of the community college for a plethora of reasons including addiction. It's approaching 2 years since he's been to class, and he lives with his parents while refusing to find work or pay rent. Parents are split on evicting him. I think it's unfortunate when he seemed to be rather smart, so when I see someone like my nephew call me because he feels bad about getting too scared, I believe his motivation to try again should be rewarded, but in preventing him from doing so, you could rob a lifelong memory of getting back up that he can refer to years from now when life throws a different challenge at him, and I hope it doesn't stunt his growth confidence. My coworker's son was career-driven not too long ago, so you shouldn't take it for granted when your kid is motivated. I wish I would have thought to mention my coworker's son to my brother, but perhaps it wouldn't have changed his mind. Part of me feels like the embarrassment he mentioned could be a driving factor behind his decision, but I hope he doesn't value it more than his son's best interests. Second update. There are 2 reasons I'm making another post. The first is that my nephew informed me over the phone that my brother spoke to the youth pastor and requested he'd be removed from July's Youth Sunday lineup where he would have performed the same song while the tithe baskets were being passed. My brother told the youth pastor that God told him that he wasn't ready, and my brother relayed that to my nephew too. He also said that he needed more time to not rush back into it according to my nephew. The youth pastor complied and removed my nephew from the July lineup, although he said he could try again during August's Youth Sunday if that was better. I tried to encourage my nephew when he called. But I want to explain something before going into detail. I received a lot of DMs stating that the people who commented on my original post were wrong to tell me that my nephew was none of my business. A parent even said that they hoped extended family would hold them accountable if they were screwing up. In hindsight, I was wrong about a few things. Yes, my brother's family is his personal business. But when a child reaches out for help regarding something that isn't inherently wrong, you have the responsibility as an adult to tell him to listen to his parents if what they're saying is correct, or reach out to hear the parent's side if not so. Long as it isn't a confidential abusive situation in my nephew's case, I can't see the downside of the church's encouragement, along with the chance for a lifelong memory of redemption. The youth pastor even approved the opportunity to try again, but my brother spun some nonsense about God to change his mind as an excuse for his insecurity. I find it hypocritical when my brother's embarrassment overrode the youth pastor's decision to let him try again. Does the youth pastor not hear from God too? Or only when my brother deems it convenient? The other reflection I had was this. By denying my nephew the opportunity to try again, he is undermining the very basis of Christianity when he said he needed to learn that you don't always get second chances. If humanity didn't get a second chance after eating from the tree of good and evil in Genesis, we all would have been destined to hell according to Christianity for the first sin ever recorded. The only reason humanity wasn't was because God sent Jesus into the world to give people a second chance by dying on the cross for their sins. So by denying his son a second chance in the house of God no less, he is undermining the very basis of Christianity, and especially when a youth pastor approves it. Regarding the call I had with my nephew, he's had a change of heart since our first call. When he asked my brother if he could play in August's Youth Sunday, my brother told him no, and when he asked how long, my brother told him until he said otherwise. So for that reason, along with arguments in their home, my nephew doesn't want to play piano in church anymore. And when he told my brother, he agreed and said that the focus should be on God in church and nothing else. My nephew also said he was tired of the yelling that happened during their arguments and having to wait for invisible deadlines from his dad. And given all the BS he's had to go through, I don't blame him for no longer wanting to play there with a dad who constantly moves goalposts. Even his mother, who was originally open to trying again, has come around to his father's side. When I spoke to my nephew, I tried to encourage him to bring that same motivation to other areas of his life, including the next time he gets to play at a recital. I told him I'll try to attend the next one. I also reinforced that he did nothing wrong. Adults get stage fright too. But strength is how you get back up. I even gave a sports analogy about how many players are sometimes denied of second chances, only to prove those deniers wrong elsewhere. Peyton Manning wasn't given a chance to come back from the neck injury with the Colts and was released, only to join the Broncos and win a Super Bowl following some MVP-level seasons in Denver. I also promised to do something fun the next time I see him, like ice cream or a movie if he wants. I only see his family for the holidays due to distance, but I'm considering taking time off to see him sooner to cheer him up. He could use a distraction in the best way, and I even considered purchasing the new Nintendo device, although they're out of stock at many places I've checked. I would appreciate other ideas that could hopefully cheer him up. Regarding my brother, I debated calling him because I felt I had to say something and let him off easy when I apologized for reaching out on my nephew's behalf after heeding bad advice. However, I chose an email because it's easier to organize thoughts on paper. I started by telling him that while it wasn't my place to tell him how to parent his family, I wanted to provide my opinion one last time regarding this situation, in a much softer way than I spoke about my brother in this post. I tried to remind him of how God sent Jesus to give humanity a second chance, like I said above, and I did so without accusing him of depriving his son because I want him to consider it. I also encouraged him to speak to someone else at church for a second godly opinion, because the church seemed supportive of his son, and even if he wouldn't play in July, I encouraged him to let him try again in August so that he wouldn't build resentment towards the church or his family. If my nephew chooses to walk away from Christianity, he would be validated in doing so for any reason, but it would be a shame if it happened over something as frail as his father's ego. So I'm hoping for the best. He hasn't replied yet, and it's been a few days since I've sent it. I wanted to be harsher than I was, because people like him give Christians a bad name, using God as an excuse for their insecurities and hurtful behavior. But using that tone would have been an immediate turnoff, so I opted for a softer one. All I can do is hope he considers getting godly counsel from a church that seems to be supportive. Third update. My brother finally responded to the email I sent him, and he did so via text. He said he was disappointed that I went back on my word to bring up the matter after believing our previous call would be the last. He also said I had no right to use the Bible to try and convince him because I wasn't a practicing Christian. He then said that he didn't tell me how to live and that he didn't want me to bring it up again. I have yet to respond to him, but I did have another conversation with my nephew about a recent decision he made. He told me that he had decided to stop playing piano altogether for a few more reasons I hadn't known. He previously mentioned that there was often yelling when he asked his dad if he could try again. But what I didn't know was that he was punished for asking the youth pastor if he could try again after my brother said no earlier in the week. And when he told my brother that the youth pastor said yes, he was punished. My brother took away his video game device for a few days before returning it, so that played a part in him losing the desire to practice for much of last month, and he has now decided to quit piano entirely. When he told my brother, he agreed with his decision. Although his mom disagreed, My nephew said he was embarrassed after my brother went to the youth pastor and told him that his son disobeyed by asking the youth pastor to try again after he said no. And that played a part in the youth pastor's decision to remove him from the lineup. So, while my nephew didn't give me the whole story about how he had already been told no by my brother before asking the youth pastor, my position still stands that my brother is wrong. My nephew should be commended for wanting to try again, but he was punished and lost his passion instead. I can't blame my nephew for not wanting to continue in such a spiteful environment at home. My brother even said that he should take a break from his piano lessons. According to my nephew, and I wasn't aware of that until our last call, my nephew told my brother that he didn't want to attend youth group anymore, following the embarrassment of what happened. And my brother agreed. My brother not only told him that he didn't need to attend that youth group anymore, but also that he didn't have to attend that church on Sundays. He said they would look for a new youth group in the community so that he could have a fresh start. He also said that that would help kill the noise at church about when he'd try to play again. My brother has switched churches a few times over the years, but I find it sad that my nephew lost a non-toxic, supportive church community, which seems to be all too rare these days. By giving my nephew the standing ovation after his shortcomings, they showed the love of Jesus, and that shouldn't be taken for granted. It wouldn't surprise me if my brother left eventually. He teaches a lot there, so I'm guessing he has commitments to see through. But I would bet money that he does sooner or later. I tried to encourage my nephew not to let them taint his passion for piano, but he had already decided when we spoke. I already made plans to take time off to visit him on Labor Day weekend, and I hope to encourage him in person because he needs it. He said he wants to move on from it all, and I can't blame him. I debated telling others in our family about the shameful way he destroyed his son's hobby, but I haven't, because he wants to move on, and that could make things worse for him at home if they think he told others. Instead, I'm looking into getting counseling from a professional to see how I can better support him going forward. That likely won't happen before I visit, but I want to be able to help him long-term because there will likely be other issues with his parents. I already lost respect for my brother's politics in recent years that he'd often bring up in calls despite me saying I don't want to hear it. But no only matters when he says it regarding the piano incident. But this has somehow made me lose even more. He's dead to me for how he's treated his son. But I'm holding back my desire to yell at him to ensure I'm not cut off from my nephew who feels comfortable venting. He ain't getting support from them. So I think it's more important to keep a connection for his future. Fourth update. Gonna keep this brief as my only update came via a text. When I drive to visit my brother for the holidays or during the year, I give him a heads up about the weekend I'm thinking of, and we've done that for years. It also helps us schedule activities too, and my brother was cool when I initially told him that I could visit for Labor Day weekend. I texted him a few days ago about it, and he replied that it was fine. But now, he's changed his mind and sent a new text apologizing for the last-minute change. He said he doesn't think it's a good time for me to visit, given what happened with the church situation. But if I choose to come anyway, we wouldn't hang out, and I couldn't stay with them to save money in years past. They would allow me to stay in their family room on one of the couches that turns into a bed. But that is now off of the table for Labor Day weekend. This is the first time he told me I couldn't come, and when I called to hear him explain over the phone, he said he didn't want me to talk to my nephew over the phone for the time being. And he also told my nephew not to call me either. I told him that I didn't think that was right. But he said he'd know if I called my nephew. And I'm aware that my nephew has parental controls on his phone, so from this point on, I'm not going to communicate further with them until I speak with a counselor to see how I can best help my nephew now and in the future. I'm worried that there's more going on that I don't know, given the yelling among other things my nephew mentioned regarding the incident. But I'm going to get counseling from a professional first because, at this rate, I feel like things are hanging by a thread. So I'll get advice before making a mistake and getting cut off entirely when my nephew might need me in the future. I have booked an appointment with my doctor to see if he can refer me to a therapist faster while searching for some online in the meantime. Fifth update: Labor Day has come and gone. I didn't visit my brother per his 180, and I didn't respond to his 180 text either. When I didn't respond for a few days, he actually had the nerve to call me and apologize for the last-minute change. When he asked why I didn't respond, I voiced my displeasure with his 180 and how he told me not to contact my nephew regarding the latter. He said he blocked my number on my nephew's phone using parental controls because he wanted to de-escalate the situation, and that led to another argument. He said it'd be temporary, but who knows with him. I previously mentioned booking an appointment with my doctor to see if he could refer me to a therapist. But since his earliest appointment was a few months out, I decided to use my job's employee resources, which offered free counseling for employees much sooner. I explained my nephew's situation, how he reached out for help and mentioned that other issues were going on at home, but didn't want to specify when I asked if anything else had happened besides the yelling. My counselor said that they were trying to isolate him because why would they pull him from a supportive church and tell me not to contact him too? She recommended telling my parents and potentially others, because it'd be hard for them to cut off everyone. So that's what I decided to do. I called my parents, who are both Christians, and told them everything that happened to my nephew, and they were disgusted and unaware of the situation. They attend a different church than my brother. They called my brother shortly after our conversation, and my brother later texted me that I had no place to tell them about his family business. I decided to call him rather than argue over text, and we had a brief conversation. He said the situation was already over because his wife and son had already begun attending another church, and that he'd join them after finishing some commitments since he still teaches at his church. He also said that I was no longer invited to come over for Thanksgiving and Christmas for the foreseeable future until things die down. I called my parents shortly after our call ended, and they were disgusted with what he said. My parents have since debated two courses of action. The first is to call for a wellness check for my nephew or CPS. They're researching which would be better for this situation. And the second they already did. They reached out to a pastor at their church and told him the full situation with my nephew. The pastor said that he would see if he or another pastor would be allowed to call the pastor at my brother's church to inform them of the real reason my brother wouldn't let his son try again, and lied to the youth pastor by saying God told him his son wasn't ready instead of mentioning his embarrassment and other reasons he gave. I support both options, and we will do both. But I especially love the second one and credit my parents and that pastor for coming up with it. According to that pastor, he said that churches sometimes call other churches when they hear of certain situations or to report a harmful member they've had experience with. So he thinks that this could fall into that category. My brother also told our parents that he didn't want them to come over when my parents asked if they could during their call. So this is where we're at currently. New update. This is the last time I'll post about this to provide some sense of closure for those who offered advice, including some from counselors who messaged me because I don't see a solution in the short term. My counselor at work agrees that my nephew is likely in for a long game with his parents until he's 18, and the unlikely chance of CPS taking action. So our focus should be on trying to offer support however we can. One thing my parents and I found strange was the overreaction to such a small thing. My brother told my parents and I that we're not allowed to visit to see my nephew, but it doesn't make sense to be that drastic over church stage fright alone, even if he felt embarrassed by his church peers. My parents believe that something else is going on, and my nephew alluded to other things besides yelling that he didn't feel comfortable disclosing to me in prior calls. My parents reached out for counseling of their own from their church and decided to take the CPS route. I also decided to call CPS regarding my first-hand experience with my nephew, and my parents are hoping that someone from their church calls too, though odds may be small because my brother doesn't attend their church. Regarding the pastor they spoke to at their church, my parents were informed that the pastor received permission to call my brother's church regarding the lies he told the youth pastor. I don't know what will come from it, and it'll probably be up to my brother's church to decide how to handle it, if at all different denominations. My parents have also debated telling our extended family about how my nephew was cut off from us, but they decided not to for the following reasons. When my parents called my brother after learning about the situation, he said they couldn't visit and blocked their numbers on my nephew's parental controls. So now we're both blocked, which raised red flags. I don't regret telling my parents because I think their insight has been instrumental and carries more weight with calling CPS potentially as the parents of my brother. But they decided not to tell any other extended family as of yet in case my nephew is able to call them and hasn't had any other numbers blocked. My parents weren't blocked until they called my brother. If my counselor or theirs advises otherwise, we'll consider it then. I'm slightly hopeful for my brother's church to handle the situation appropriately, given how supportive they were of my nephew. The last thing I'll add is about my brother's wife, because some people asked why I didn't call her. When the situation started, she was supportive of my nephew trying again at church, but according to later calls I had with my nephew before being blocked, he said that she went to his father's side and began yelling at him too. For that reason, I didn't bother with her as she was complicit in yelling at him with my brother.